Chapter 561-Revolutionary Army. Silence. The crowd in black also froze and stopped. The man in black, who was being watched by Liang, gradually lifted the black coat and hat on his head, and his big eyes, full of excitement, looked at Liang in front of him. She had a delicate face, her skin was a healthy wheat color, her long eyelashes fluttered, and her smooth hair fell on her shoulders, just staring at Liang in a daze. She, of course, was taken by Robin. Since being beaten by the Bartholomew Bear, she has successfully met the people of the Revolutionary Army. During this time, she followed the people of the Revolutionary Army to carry out tasks. Of course, her purpose is to interpret more historical texts here in the Revolutionary Army. However, she could not have imagined that on this island, she would bump into Liang, who had been thinking about it day and night, and had been wandering in her head. This is already, how long has it been since we met? Liang. Robin's pink lips were slightly opened, and his delicate face was a little blurred, and he whispered. Her devilish figure was wrapped under loose black clothes, and her tall figure looked a little thin. Why are you here? With a smile, Liang looked at Robin and several revolutionary troops beside Robin, and asked with a smile. At this time, Hancock, Tautu, and Tina also reacted, and gave Liang an angry glance. This guy, really, wherever he goes, there are girls who have been captured by him. And, each and every one of them is so beautiful. The beauty of Robin in front of him is unquestionable. Especially that kind of intellectual and gentle beauty, it makes people not feel any bad feelings. However, the three of them still did not speak and stood aside. At this time, the 3 or 5 revolutionary soldiers also came back to their senses, looking at Liang in front of him. His eyes were constantly enlarged, his expression was full of shock, his lips were trembling. Liang. Their throats were dry, and they said these words with horror on their faces. This name, to them, is like the name of a god. Actually, I met the monster Liang here. This is a terrifying object that must not be provoked by the leader's orders. Not only that, Liang's many actions are also clear to them. It is precisely because it is so clear that their fear of Liang is deep in their bones. What do you want to do? We didn't provoke you. A black-clothed revolutionary army looked at Liang and said with fear. They don't want to confront Liang head-on, and their mission has nothing to do with Liang. Liang ignored the members of the Revolutionary Army and kept looking at Robin in front of him with a smile. I miss you so much. Robin rushed over at once, hugged Liang violently, and said with a bit of water mist in her beautiful eyes. Liang stretched out his hands, wrapped his arms around Robin's soft body, and said with a smile, I miss you so much, too. After not seeing him for such a long time, Robin's figure seems to be more perfect. When the whole person was squeezed into Liang's arms, Liang could still feel that the two groups were soft and seemed to be more turbulent than before. Is it because of the changes brought about by the process of changing from a girl to a woman? Generally speaking, after a woman becomes a woman, her body will grow again. Just like Hancock, Tautu, Tina and the others are also developing every day. Hancock's figure is particularly obvious. She used to be quite the devil's figure. Now, she has shown all the charms of women, and her figure is simply perfect in the world. Ms. Robin. The rest of the Revolutionary Army looked at the scene in front of them in shock. Robin and Leon, do you know? Moreover, this relationship is still very close. Chapter 561-Revolutionary Army. Moreover, this relationship is still very close. Immediately, Robin reacted, blushing, and quickly broke free from Liang's embrace. There are so many people here, making her a thin-skinned girl, she always feels a little embarrassed. Let's go to the temporary base of your Revolutionary Army and take a look at your situation. Liang rubbed Robin's hair and said with a smile. Yeah. Robin nodded obediently, blushing, and arrived. The Revolutionary Army on the side wanted to stop it, but it still stopped. They can't stop Li Yang. In this case, it would be better to simply let the other party go to the base with them. It can't be stopped anyway, what else can I do? Conflict with Li Yang. They wouldn't dare to do that at all. What would they do if they wanted to kill themselves? Although they have long since contributed their lives to the Revolutionary Army, the same, unnecessary deaths must be avoided if they can be avoided. Let's go. Li Yang looked at Hancock, Tautu, and Tina and laughed softly. Flowers. You bad guy, where did you deceive the innocent little girl? Hancock rolled his eyes angrily, looking very charming, said. That is, wherever you go, there are little girls who have been deceived by you. He's utterly bad, if I tell you. But it's so sad that we love him so much. Tautu and Tina's delicate faces also said with a bit of joking. You, any of you, in this life, don't even try to escape from my palm. Li Yang laughed and said slowly. Go away. Hancock, Tautu, and Tina blushed and said quickly. Robin stood beside Li Yang. His face was slightly red, and his delicate facial features showed charming charm. A pair of straight and slender long legs swayed, wearing purple boots, which was very attractive. 0. By the way, you Revolutionary Army, what are you doing here? Li Yang turned his head, looked at Robin's delicate profile, and asked with a smile. Of course it's on a mission. Robin lowered his head, his hair covered his cheeks, and explained in a low voice, After I left the Chambord Islands, I met people from the Revolutionary Army and joined them to perform some tasks. At the same time, I also gained a lot of information on the history of this article. Quote. We came here to find out what happened here. I heard that there is a pirate group here that has captured 3,000 children. We came here naturally to rescue them. Of course, my help here is not very big, so I can be regarded as an assistant. The goal of the Revolutionary Army is to rescue the children and absorb more fresh blood for themselves. Robin leaned against Li Yang's ear in a low voice and explained. This is relatively confidential information. But Robin still told Li Yang truthfully. You are also here for the 3,000 children. Li Yang's eyes flashed, and with a bit of surprise, he smiled. Are you too? Robin was surprised and asked silently. Yeah, look, the two lovely wives behind me, like you, are my beloved wives. Among them, both of them are in the Navy and came to carry out this mission. Li Yang looked at Tautu and Tina behind him and introduced with a smile. You bastard. Robin rolled his eyes, looking alluring. Chapter 562-eyebrows. Charm of character. Li Yang smiled and joked. That's right. Robin's beautiful eyes flashed, her pretty face became serious and angry, and she whispered, Do you know something that happened here? I heard about it when I first came here. It's so hateful. You mean someone pretending to be my name and spoofing? Li Yang narrowed his eyes slightly and said with a smile. You know what? It was Robin's turn to be startled, covered his pink lips, looked at Li Yang, and said. Of course, I knew just now, and I was planning to go to him. However, I ran into you on the way. So, let's delay it for a while. It's hard to see you. Li Yang's eyes softened and he smiled. I've checked some news about him. Robin lowered his head shyly, his face blushed, and said. Hearing this, Li Yang didn't feel the slightest surprise at 600 inches and said with a smile, Let's hear it. This guy is the head of a force. He created a force to promote a lot of economic development on the entire island. Many businesses can see his shadow. For example, human trafficking. There is also a dark world hidden in this island. And he acts as the spokesperson of the dark world. On the surface, he is the Lord Li Yang, respected by everyone, but in fact, no one knows. Impersonating you. The main thing is what he proposed, and he also planned a perfect strategy for this. Quote. Robin's pretty face became very dignified and explained. The energy is not small. Li Yang smiled and didn't care too much. For him, what power is irrelevant. Just stop him and kill him. If the people on this island are blindly believing in that so-called fake, then he doesn't mind and destroys the whole island. But there are only millions of people in the district, and if you kill it, you will kill it. He admits that he is not a good person. If these stupid residents don't know how to recognize the situation, he doesn't mind letting them see what absolute power is. In the face of absolute power, any plan, any strategy, is useless. Even if it can inspire people's hearts, it can confuse millions of people. However, if Li Ang is provoked, even if there are millions of people as shields, this fake will have to die. Whoever dares to block, whoever will suffer the result of killing. As for killing millions of people, will there be any righteous people in the Navy looking for trouble? Li Ang won't worry at all. If anyone comes, just prepare to collect the corpse. In this world, he possesses absolute power. He will not fear any one person, any force. The head of this force actually dared to pretend to be him. If that's the case, then prepare to die. He will not be merciful. On the contrary, if the so-called underground forces are uprooted, it is only a matter of convenience for him, and there is nothing to fear. Yes, he's very good at stirring up people's hearts. Robin's pretty face showed a bit of caution and said, there has been a wave of worship on the entire island. The worship of him is close to admiration for a god. If you are so capable, why do you pretend to be my name? Li Ang asked with a smile. Because he has no extraordinary ability, he is just good at using others. It is definitely impossible to achieve your ability, Lord Li Ang. So, he can only pretend to be your name to swindle and deceive himself, and at the same time bring himself greater wealth. I suspect that he is related to the pirate group of 3,000 children. The pirate group can hide here, probably because of his ability, forcibly suppressing any news from spreading. This guy is very tricky. Quote. Robin's pretty face is also very cautious. She inquired about a lot of news, all of which showed that this person was terrible. Chapter 562-eyes. She inquired about a lot of news, all of which showed that this person was terrible. Many people have not refuted, this person is a fake. But in the end it disappeared silently. The next day on this island, there were still countless people admiring the imposter. Among them, the hands and feet of the counterfeit are absolutely indispensable. It was as if the entire island was in the palm of this person's hand, and nothing could escape his eyes and ears. Then I look forward to seeing him even more. The corners of Li Ang's mouth were slightly raised, and he said with a faint smile. The front is the temporary base of our revolutionary army. This time, our revolutionary army has a total of 60 people. They are all scattered and divided into parts, so that it is not easy for people to notice. Robin's pretty face moved, looked forward, and said. In front is a relatively dilapidated house. The whole building looks very old. I don't know how many years ago it originated. Still not collapsing, which is also a magical thing. The whole building is what Robin calls the temporary base of the Revolutionary Army. Including them, there are a total of 60 people inside, and this is the strength of the Revolutionary Army dispatched for this matter. There are about 7 people at the top, naturally including Robin. For this matter, the Revolutionary Army is still quite valued. In order to save 3,000 children, he did not hesitate to take risks. However, Li Ang didn't care about such a thing. Saving children is to join the Revolutionary Army, which is a very interesting thing. What if these children have parents? Is that a release? Or still bring back the Revolutionary Army? Although many of them are orphans, there must be children from families, there is no doubt. Crunch. The iron door opened. Show the scene inside this building. The inside and outside are the same, very old, and many places are stained with dust. A group of people in black were gathering inside, and they were all members of the Revolutionary Army. We're back. Standing in front of Robin, the 3 or 5 revolutionary soldiers took off the black coats and hats on their heads and breathed a sigh of relief. In order to prevent those who come in from being the enemy, the Revolutionary Army must be careful. Therefore, after seeing Li Ang and others, most of the people here subconsciously took out their pistols. After seeing his companions, he gradually relaxed. 5.2. You're still quite cautious. Li Ang said with a smile on his face. If you weren't careful, you wouldn't know which street you would have died on. Robin was deeply touched, and a sigh appeared on his delicate face. She must have been through a lot during this time. She also deeply felt the death of her companions one by one. Don't think about it, I'm here. Li Ang rubbed Robin's hair and smiled. Yeah. Robin leaned on Li Ang's shoulder and felt a sense of security. Only by standing beside Li Ang and feeling Li Ang's existence can she feel so down to earth and safe. After leaving Li Ang, she was like a lonely traveler, walking all the way without stopping. No one could give her the kind of security she felt around Li Ang. Chapter 563_Negotiation. Robin, let's talk about the next plan. On the other side, a group of revolutionary troops looked at Robin and whispered. Facing Robin, they dared not speak loudly. At the same time, each of them, looking at Li Ang's eyes, couldn't hide their horror. In an instant, they recognized the man beside Robin, who was definitely Li Ang without a doubt. This is the real Li Ang, which is completely different from the so-called fake outside. This is a real monster. The terrifying monster that made their leader, Drago, deeply fearful. I didn't expect to meet a real person here. That's not true, but then again, if the imposter outside knew the real Li Ang, would he be frightened to the brim? It's really interesting. The counterfeit met the real Li Ang. I imagined that I was a little excited. I'm sure that the counterfeit can't escape Li Ang's palm. Quote. The Revolutionary Army talked in a low voice, with a strong sense of anticipation in their eyes. They can't wait to see what it will be like when counterfeit goods encounter genuine goods. At that time, even if it wins the hearts of the people, no amount of admirers could save the imposter's life. After all, this is a real Li Ang. A terrifying figure who can shake the Navy headquarters and make the four emperors retreat. Just people on an island, for Li Ang, it's not a problem at all. I'll go talk about it first, the next plan is. Robin took a deep breath and said. I'll join your discussion too. It just so happens that I'm also targeting the so-called counterfeiters and the group of pirates. It's better to get what they need. Li Ang hugged Robin's slender waist, pulled it into his arms, and laughed in a low voice. Feeling the softness of Robin's body, he could not help but narrow his eyes slightly, savoring it carefully. Robin blushed and said, well, I think they should agree. After all, if you join in, the completion rate of the task will be as high as 100%. You are so confident in me. Li Ang laughed and said slowly. Of course. Robin nodded solemnly, smiled sweetly, his eyelashes trembled, and said, you are Li Ang, who is famous in the sea. You are completely different from that fake. A fake only dares to sway on this island. And you can walk sideways across the entire sea. Can't you tell which one is stronger and which is weaker? I'm sure that imposter must have been terrified when he saw you. Standing in front of the genuine one, does the counterfeit have the guts to continue impersonating? This is definitely impossible. At that time, you must punish him properly, unforgivable. Quote. Robin looked at Li Ang, clenched his pink fist, and said. Obviously, she also has murderous intentions for that fake. Of course I won't let him go. Li Ang smiled and nodded. Immediately, Robin walked forward and discussed with everyone in the Revolutionary Army. And Li Ang turned his head, looked at Hancock, Tautu, and Tina, and said with a smile, 3 wives, you don't seem to look very good looking at your faces. Humph. The 3 girls snorted in unison, their pretty faces full of dissatisfaction. Seeing Li Ang and Robin being so affectionate, but forgetting all 3 of them, they will definitely taste it in their hearts. Okay, because I haven't seen each other for a long time, you can understand my mood. Li Ang walked over, pecked at the delicate fairness of the three, rubbed their hair, and smiled. It's not an example. Hancock's red lips parted slightly, and his beautiful eyes looked at Li Ang and said viciously. It's not that you can't be intimate, it's just that you can't ignore us. Tina's pink lips moved slightly, looked at Li Ang, and whispered. Yes, I was wrong. I beg the forgiveness of the three wives. Chapter 563_negotiation. Yes, I was wrong. I beg the forgiveness of the three wives. Li Ang nodded quickly, showing a little smile, said. This time, I will forgive you. Tautu's pretty face also showed a smile. Immediately after, Robin returned to Li Ang again, with a smile, and said, they all agreed, and everything is dominated by your will. They can help you implement your ideas. The final task, just let they're done. Is it so cooperative? A bit of surprise appeared on Li Ang's face, and he smiled. Of course, you are Li Ang. Robin nodded solemnly and chuckled. With Li Ang joining in, this mission will definitely go very smoothly. Therefore, it is not without their plans that the people of the Revolutionary Army let Li Ang join the discussion. At least, the difficulty of the task has plummeted. With the addition of Li Ang, any obstacles are not to be feared. Flowers. Whether it is a fake or a pirate group, in front of Li Ang, everyone seems vulnerable and has no resistance. How could they refuse such assistance? But for the assignment after the task, it may be troublesome. At this time, Tina, who was behind Li Ang, walked step by step, leaned on Li Ang's side, and said softly, we can do this. Their tasks are the same as ours. If we cooperate, let's assign the final result like this. We in the Navy send children with parents and families back to everyone's family. And for those orphans, let them follow the Revolutionary Army. What do you think of this proposal? Tina Mei looked at Li Ang and asked in a low voice. Tina, I really love you so much. Li Ang smiled while holding Tina's delicate face. He understands that Tina made this kind of opinion in order not to embarrass him, and it is considered to cooperate with Robin. Otherwise, relying on the strength of Tina and Tautu, they can completely crush this group of revolutionary troops, and there is no reason to assign the final result. Everything, it is only for Li Ang's face, and it can be regarded as giving Robin a face, so he will make this proposal. Okay, go and discuss it with them. What if they don't agree? Tina blushed slightly, smiled, and said. No. Li Ang shook his head, walked in Robin's direction, and told Robin all of Tina's proposal just now. After Robin heard it, he also discussed with everyone in the Revolutionary Army. The final result is naturally self-evident. It is also more troublesome for the Navy to deal with some orphans. But if it is handed over to the Revolutionary Army, it can save a lot of trouble. And the Revolutionary Army did not have the heart to send some children with parents and families directly to the Revolutionary Army for some dangerous training. So, think about taking a shot, and agree directly. Hard to imagine. Someday, people from the Navy actually cooperated with people from the Revolutionary Army. And this, of course, is because of the existence of Li Ang. If there is no Li Ang, it is basically impossible for the two to cooperate. This time, the handling of the matter also has a result. Next, you need to arrange a specific plan and order of actions. Chapter 564_action. Things have been discussed, so the next step is how to act. They have all said that they will obey your orders and will not disobey. So, you have to find a way to give them orders. After all, you are Li Ang. Robin's beautiful eyes fixed on Li Ang's face and smiled. How to act? Li Ang's eyes flashed, and he said with a smile, I would like to do it directly and kill them, including uprooting the forces behind them. Isn't that easy and straightforward? But you also have to know where they are. Robin thought for a moment and said. So, you have to let your personnel branch go out and search for their addresses. Then, report the news to me, and their mission will be considered a complete success. The rest can be handled by me. 633. Li Ang smiled and nodded. Well, I'll talk to them about it. After Robin nodded, he returned to his companion again and talked in a low voice. Soon. She came to Li Ang, nodded and said, they all agreed. If they were just searching for their location, they would still be very confident. It's just that it might be a bit of a disadvantage if they hit it hard. But fortunately, with your participation, they can effectively avoid their own shortcomings. Searching for specific information and then giving you to deal with it is the best way. Robin smiled and said softly. So, you have to let them search for information quickly. But don't let me be faster than 50 of them. Li Ang waved his hand and said with a smile. Don't worry, I will let them attack quickly now. Plus, we already have a certain amount of information, and it is not difficult to find the address of the imposter. After finding this so-called imposter, we will follow the clues, and it is possible to directly catch the group of pirates, killing two birds with one stone. It's not too convenient. Of course, the premise is that the two must be related. But with the information we currently control, there is already a 70–80% chance that the two are absolutely related. Quote. Robin thought for a while, and said with a confident smile. She is still very confident about Li Ang's terrifying strength. Facing the mere counterfeit goods, it is impossible to hinder Li Ang's footsteps. The main problem is that they have to find the address of the fake. While counterfeiters are popular across the island, his whereabouts remain a mystery to this day. However, for them, it is not difficult to find the address of this fake, at most it will take a certain amount of time. Okay, let your people act. Li Ang looked calm, glanced at the many revolutionary troops in front, and said lightly, everyone, let's get started, just find the address of the counterfeit goods. The next thing, leave it to me, and your tasks will be completed as well. Good. After the people of the Revolutionary Army nodded solemnly, they immediately left the floor. Seeing that the people of the Revolutionary Army gradually left, Robin's face moved, and he couldn't help asking, so, what do I need to do? At this time, the whole building was empty. All the revolutionary troops went out to carry out the orders given by Li Ang. The most important thing is that more than 50 people search for the whereabouts of the counterfeit goods. As for your words. Li Ang looked at Robin in front of him, and that delicate face was showing a look of anticipation. It seemed that she also wanted to participate in the mission. Chapter 564-Action. Li Ang looked at Robin in front of him, and that delicate face was showing a look of anticipation. It seemed that she also wanted to participate in the mission. Immediately, Li Ang rubbed Robin's hair and said with a smile, of course, I'll talk to you. I haven't seen you for a long time, why would I let you go on a mission? Do people have the ability to protect themselves? Robin blushed slightly, lowered his head, and said. Introduction to you. Li Ang's eyes flashed, he turned his head, looked at Hancock, Tautu, and Tina, and said with a smile, these three, like you, hope you can get along well. Hancock, Tautu, and Tina gradually took off their masks. A piece of delicate face, presented in Robin's line of sight. This is. Robin's beautiful eyes widened, round and round. First, he looked at Hancock and lost his voice, one of the 7 C's, Empress Hancock. Hello, Robin. Hancock's red lips parted slightly, showing a gentle smile, arrived. Hancock, who has always been cold, can treat people with a smile, which shows that she also accepts the identity of Robin. But when it comes to Li Ang, she won't be too domineering. Hello. Robin looked a little restrained, and he was under too much pressure. The Hancock in front of him, whether in terms of face, body or strength, is standing at the top of the pyramid, a quite perfect woman. Unexpectedly, even such a woman was convinced by Li Ang. This made her look at Li Ang involuntarily, and found that the other party was smiling, and she was full of scorn in her heart. Hello, Robin, My name is Peach Rabbit. My name is Tina. Tautu and Tina also took off their masks and laughed. At the same time, Robin saw these two delicate faces again, and got used to it a little bit, and he didn't have a shocked expression just now. However, where did these two seem to have met? Peach Bunny, Tina. Robin's beautiful eyes flashed, and he immediately blurted out, Peach Rabbit, is that the alternate general, Peach Rabbit? And Tina, a colonel? Oh, you know what? Both women looked surprised. She naturally knows. After all, a person with the title of scholar is not called for nothing. As early as her childhood, she was given the title of archaeologist. You guys, don't even think about looking at other people. She is a well-deserved genius. She knows a lot about archaeology. She even knows more than you. 1.4 with a smile. So it is. The three of Hancock were stunned, and the eyes of Robin also changed a bit. Li Ang, the bad guy. Really, every time the target is shot, it is unusual. At this moment, an archaeologist was actually deceived. Almost every professional has been deceived by this bad guy. Even an archaeologist, such a wise woman who thought she was mature, intellectual and beautiful, was captured by Li Ang. The ability of this bad guy really surprised them all. However, even Chiwahai, the world's most beautiful female Emperor Hancock, was captured by Li Ang. What else can't appear? They were quickly relieved, showing sweet smiles, and gradually chatting with Robin, showing an atmosphere of accommodating each other. Chapter 565-Tenderness Like Water. In the warm atmosphere created by Hancock, Tautu, and Tina, Robin quickly got used to it, and the tension in his heart gradually disappeared. On the contrary, chatting and laughing with the three girls did not hinder any communication. This made Li Ang look at it and felt even more gratified. If there is a conflict, he can't handle it. Okay, let's go, find a place to talk about your experience during these times. Li Ang looked at Robin and smiled. Yeah. Robin nodded, not objecting. Hancock, Tautu, and Tina were also beside Robin, laughing and talking about something. The four girls are very harmonious and the atmosphere is very warm. On the contrary, Li Ang, who seemed like an outsider, could only wave his hand helplessly. Robin, how did the bad guy Li Ang deceive you? Tina asked with her pink lips slightly parted, her expression full of curiosity. Immediately, Hancock and Tautu also fixed their beautiful eyes on Robin's face, their expressions full of curiosity and anticipation, like a curious baby, carefully serving as the audience. This is it. Robin blushed slightly, glanced at Li Ang calmly, and said in a low voice, at that time, this guy was broken and tricked us into his castle. Then he wouldn't let us go, and let us be there for him. Part-time work. Quote. In the beginning, everything was fine, but later, the purpose of this guy gradually appeared. In addition, at that time, his reputation was very good, but any girl may have a good impression. So, under his active offensive, we fell completely. This bad guy, looking back now, I think he was plotting bad things from the beginning. Quote. Listen to Robin's words. Hancock, Tautu, and Tina looked at Li Ang with beautiful eyes, and said angrily, I knew you were uneasy and kind, but I didn't expect that I would underestimate you. Well, let's talk about where to go now. Li Ang waved his hand helplessly and said. At this time, all five had already walked out of the street. In order to prevent unrest, Hancock, Tautu, and Tina put on their masks again. Robin, on the other hand, put on the black coat and hat directly on his head, which effectively blocked his face. It's just that the devilish figures of the five women are still difficult to hide their amazing looks, and they can't help but exude a charming charm, which still attracts the attention of some people. But they didn't dare to strike up a conversation at will. Even if you block your face, you can't block your charm. With a smile on his face, Li Ang joked. That's just a mere mask. Could it be that our appearance is something that a mere mask can block? Tina's pink lips parted slightly, her face blushed, and said, "It takes a lot of courage to make her say such narcissistic words." Of course. It may also be because she is wearing a mask now, so she dares to speak like that. Even if you blush, no one will notice. Tina, when did you learn to be so narcissistic? Did Hancock teach you to be so narcissistic? Liang smiled at Tina. Through the mask, he could feel the crimson of Tina's pretty face. How am I? Hancock's beautiful eyes widened, a little dissatisfied, said. Narcissism has always been your patent. Liang rubbed Hancock's smooth hair and smiled. This ushered in Hancock's anger, snorted, and said, "Let go, your hair is messed up for you. Then let me comb your hair for you. Seeing your arrogant appearance, I'm really used to you." Liang slowly stretched out his hand, his fingertips slid the smooth black hair, and smiled. Chapter 565-Tenderness Like Water. Liang slowly stretched out his hand, his fingertips slid the smooth black hair, and smiled. Suddenly, Hancock didn't speak. The delicate and pretty face hidden in the mask was flushed, like a red apple. His heart moved, and it was unbelievably beautiful. "Everyone, let's plan first. Where are we going?" After Liang straightened Hancock's hair, he waved his hand and asked, "Or, go back to the hotel directly. Anyway, we just need to wait quietly for the information from the Revolutionary Army." "All right." Robin's pretty face moved. Mei Mei flashed a little shyness, and nodded with a blushing face. Huh. Hancock, Tautu, and Tina all looked at Robin's position and smiled meaningfully. "We haven't reacted yet, Robin," this little girl actually agreed. "I see, the purpose is impure." "No way." Robin blushed and said quickly. "Look, even the reaction is so violent. I think it must be an impure purpose. Come on, what exactly is in your mind?" Hancock was very bold and asked some questions that Robin could not answer. Just now, Robin, really moved that thought. However, after being dismantled, her thought disappeared instantly, but her face was still blushing, and she kept talking, trying to change the subject. What was she thinking just now? Back to the hotel, what else can I do? I haven't seen Liang for so long. When I saw Liang, who was thinking day and night. Naturally, all affection, naturally turned into a thought in an instant. "Okay, let's go." Liang quickly made a clearance for Robin, said. "If Hancock and others continue to talk about it, I am afraid that Robin, this little girl, will have a broken mentality. Now she is ashamed, her face is flushed, and white smoke is coming from her forehead. Well, let's go back to the hotel." The smiles of Hancock, Tautu, and Tina looked very intriguing, nodded and smiled. Soon after turning left and right, they returned to the hotel smoothly. The door opens and closes. In the room, only Liang was left, as well as Hancock, Tautu, Tina, and Robin. "Did you see that?" Hancock's pretty face was a little red, and she took off the mask, and the delicate face showed her infinite charm, which was unbelievably beautiful. Tautu and Tina also cut off their masks and asked in confusion, "What's wrong?" Just now, when so many of us entered a room together, the female staff members' eyes were so strange. Hancock blushed and hurriedly told what happened just now. "You said this." Tautu and Tina also had ruddy faces, nodded and said, "We all saw it, but I didn't have the nerve to look at her. After all, there are 5 people in one room." Speaking of which, their faces became more and more rosy, like a ripe red apple. At this time, Robin also took off his black coat, revealing the figure of the devil. Hundreds of millions were wearing a purple jacket and purple shorts, and the boots reached the knees. A pair of straight and slender long legs, showing a healthy wheat color, is attractive. Robin is so pretty. Hancock, Tautu, and Tina's beautiful eyes flickered, looking at Robin and smiling. At the beginning, although Robin took off his coat and hat, they still hadn't seen Robin's figure, and they were surprised when they saw it now. I have to say, the 4 of them are all in perfect shape. Even the facial features are very delicate. 4 women as beautiful as fairies stood together, and Li Ang, who was beside him, was stunned. Chapter 566-Crazy. Every woman presents a different beauty. Like a picture scroll, Li Ang's eyes were sluggish, and the corners of his mouth could not help evoking an arc, carefully admiring every inch of the 4 women's positions. No way. Robin blushed and said shyly. Her height, close to Hancock, is very tall, especially the long legs of the 2 of them, which are beyond the sky. Tautu and Tina were not far behind. A mature woman, a devil's figure, her attractive temperament and delicate facial features, really made Li Ang's body churn with blood. Especially since I haven't seen Robin for so long, I can't hide my excitement. The big pervert is here. Hancock was keenly aware of Li Ang's gaze, his red lips slightly parted, and he said loudly. Immediately, all the girls looked at Li Ang's position one after another, and seeing Li Ang's straight eyes, like a wolf, made them all take a few steps back. Cough cough. Li Ang coughed dryly and said with a smile, I can't help it. If I'm still indifferent when I see 4 such beautiful fairies, then you should be worried. It's your acquaintance. A smile appeared on Tautu's pretty face and said. There is still plenty of time. If the Revolutionary Army wants to find relevant clues, it will have to wait for a while. Then, how to spend this time? This is a very profound question. Here, I have an idea. 4 wives, do you want to come and listen? Li Ang looked at the 4 in front of him and asked with a smile. Don't. The 4 daughters all rolled their eyes and said. They all knew Li Ang's temperament, and naturally knew what the other party was thinking. Don't be so heartless. Li Ang moved in the direction of the 4th daughter step by step, looked at Robin, and said with a smile, Robin, we haven't seen each other for a long time. Well, it's been a long time. Robin nodded lightly, blushing, and said. Don't be fooled by him, Robin, this guy is so bad. Tina's pink lips parted slightly, her pretty face was vigilant, and she reminded in a low voice. Hey, Tina, you little girl. Li Ang glanced at Tina dissatisfied, and said, I'll wait, I'll take you first, and then you slander me, but you will be punished by the head of the family. I'm not afraid. Tina raised her delicate little face and said very proudly. Really? Li Ang's eyes flickered, and he suddenly appeared beside Tina and laughed. Little Tina, I think you are going to rebel. Today, I will discipline you properly. Pause first. Tina's pretty face blushed, and she hurriedly shouted. But how could Li Ang miss this great opportunity? 3 to 5 and 2 to 2, Tina didn't have any raindrops to resist at all, so she was completely stripped of her clothes. At this time, Tina blushed. Maimyu looked at Li Ang angrily, and said, You bastard. She put her hands in front of her, but still couldn't hide her choppy figure. Okay, next, whose turn is it? Li Ang smiled at the rest of Hancock, Tautu, and Robin, and said. Don't. Hancock tried to escape first, but was caught by Li Ang with a backhand. One after another, Hancock and Tautu were both settled directly by Li Ang. The 3 of them hurriedly hid on the cushion, pulling the sheet to cover their body. Maimyu was shy, looking at Li Ang and Robin. Maimyu was full of anticipation. Robin, how about you? Chapter 566-Crazy. NLT, 29 and GT. Robin, how about you? Li Ang said with a brighter smile. I'll do it myself. Robin's pretty face was blushing, and the wheat-colored skin still couldn't hide the red and delicate face. She looked at Hancock and the 3 with her beautiful eyes, looking quite shy. If it's with Li Ang alone, that's fine. But here, there are 3 people. Although everyone is a woman, I still feel very embarrassed. Want me to help you? Li Ang narrowed his eyes slightly and smiled. No need. Robin shook his smooth hair and shook his head. But Li Ang still didn't stop and said, I see, you really want my help. After he finished speaking, he ignored Robin's consent, and with a swish, Robin was naked all at once, feeling the coldness in the air, so she couldn't help reaching out to block her. However, her devilish figure was still exposed in Li Ang's sight. "It's grown, and, Robin, you seem to have turned white." The corner of Li Ang's mouth curled into an arc, leaning against Robin's side, a fragrance reverberated from the tip of his nose, and he lingered. Feeling Li Ang beside her, Robin's expression also seemed very nervous. Although it wasn't once or twice, she had just met Hancock and others. Next, if the progress is too fast all at once, she also seems unnatural. Diaresis, is there any? Robin's beautiful eyes turned, not daring to look directly at Li Ang. A clear change. Li Ang smiled and nodded. Also, he is more intellectual and wiser than before. His hands, very restless, slid on Robin's body. Feeling the softness, he narrowed his eyes slightly, took a deep breath, and was intoxicated. Robin's face was crimson, his limbs were weak, and he collapsed in front of Li Ang. "It's been so long, Robin, your figure is even more devilish." Li Ang felt the softness of the two groups in front of him, and couldn't help but smile. "Stop talking." Robin's forehead was emitting white smoke, and her body was out of control. A rush of blood rolled, her cheeks blushed, and she went straight to her forehead, making her unable to calm down. Now, her head is in a mess, and she doesn't know where the world is. "Everyone, I'm coming." Li Ang threw Robin directly in the direction of Hancock and others. Girls exclaimed. Mei Mu was shy, Li Qian's meaning. Present. Li Ang launched the attack at once, and the first target was naturally Robin, who had not seen him for a long time. And Robin's reaction was also very violent. He hadn't seen Li Ang for a long time. After seeing it all at once, all the love, like an ocean current, came out uncontrollably one after another. Suddenly, the whole room was filled with an inexplicable atmosphere. A burst of intriguing sounds echoed around. The three girls, Hancock, Tautu, and Tina, as the audience, had their pretty faces blushing, and they were really shy when they witnessed such a scene. But the most shy person saved Robin. After all, being surrounded by Hancock and the three of them made her feel ashamed. It was only with Li Ang's fierce offensive that she quickly forgot everything. Her face was crimson, and her beautiful eyes looked at Li Ang's face with a smile, and her mood was peaceful. Chapter 567 _ The War is Endless. A few minutes later. The battle is still going on, and Robin's face is red, and he still does not show a situation of defeat, which makes Li Ang a little surprised. This time, his offensive intensified. Aside. Hancock, Tautu, and Tina covered their pretty faces and whispered to themselves, "Robin, that's amazing. Is it because we haven't seen each other for too long? Actually, I haven't begged for mercy for so long. Yeah, it's really weird. However, it's not that easy to defeat Li Ang. Together we are not enough." The three of them started talking one after another, their pretty faces blushing, and they whispered. Talking about these things still makes them feel very shy. In their sight. I see. Li Ang's offensive became more and more violent, and Robin could only passively resist. His face was blushing, and his beautiful eyes were blurred, and he could no longer withstand this rapid offensive. "I can't take it anymore. Sisters, today, if we want to join forces, we will definitely defeat Li Ang." Hancock's delicate face showed a bit of firmness and said. "That's right." Tautu nodded, blushing, and said, "I can't let Robin lose completely. With so many of us, can we still lose to Li Ang? That is, if we want to use the wheel battle, we see and believe it, and we can't defeat him." Tina also nodded, and her beautiful eyes flickered a little. "So, next, who's going?" Hancock asked with a smile on his pretty face. Suddenly, the words of Tautu and Tina stopped abruptly. "Look at your appearance, let me come, then, you have to be reliable, and you must not lose." Hancock gritted his silver teeth, and his beautiful eyes flashed a little firm, said. "Don't worry, later, leave it to us." Tautu and Tina clenched their pink fists and nodded. I'll go then. Hancock took the initiative to pounce on Li Yang's position. This time, it gave Robin a chance to rest a little. She slowly raised her slender jade hand and put it on her forehead, and her beautiful eyes flashed a bit of nostalgia. She couldn't help but recall the scene when she and Nami were defeated by Li Yang alone. This time, there were 4 of them. Robin, come and rest, there's still a big fight to come. Tautu and Tina quickly pulled Robin over so that the other party could rest for a while. You guys continue, I can't take it anymore, let's take a rest first. You have to hold on a little longer, you can't lose to the bad guy Li Yang. This time, let him try to fail. Robin blushed slightly and said. Sleep at ease. Tautu and Tina nodded with a firm expression and said. Afterwards, Robin fell into a deep sleep. She was too tired. Under Li Yang's rapid attack, she couldn't stand it. Natural mental exhaustion was inevitable. Moreover, there was already a burst of soreness. This made Robin's beautiful eyes a little annoyed. He glanced at Li Yang, and thought to himself, this bad guy has nothing at all. She has already fallen into a serious injury. On the other hand, Li Yang is still alive and well. How can she endure such a result? The contrast is too great. However, since there are still 3 companions, then she can practice with confidence. Next, the war is not over yet. Must let Li Yang feel the taste of failure. At this time, Li Yang looked at Hancock, who had a pretty rosy face in front of him, and said with a smile, Hancock, you are so brave, you actually brought it up on your own initiative. This time, I must beat you. Hancock's beautiful eyes were firm, gritted her silver teeth, and said. Really? Then I'm looking forward to it. Li Yang's eyes narrowed slightly, and the attack was fast. In an instant, Hancock's beautiful eyes became absent-minded, and his delicate and pretty face became more and more rosy, ruddy half of the sky, like the sunset in the sky, dazzling. Chapter 567 _ The War is Endless. NLT, 31 and GT. Hancock's beautiful eyes became absent-minded, and his delicate and pretty face became more and more rosy, ruddy half of the sky, like the sunset in the sky, dazzling. Throughout the room, all filled with a strange smell. A few minutes later, Hancock couldn't take it anymore and fell into a break with Robin. Tautu took the initiative to attack to meet Li Yang's offensive. This time, Tautu's ability to withstand the offensive has also increased significantly. After several hours of fighting, she still shows no sign of defeat, CDCC. This made Li Yang also interested, and the frequency of the attack increased, and the violent attack like a storm, wave after wave, hit Tautu's body. Her face was ruddy and bloody, her beautiful eyes were blurred, and she almost lost consciousness, almost fainting. This guy. Tautu was extremely helpless, seeing Li Yang still alive and well. She suddenly realized that they had made the wrong idea. Actually, want to defeat the monster Li Yang. This guy, I don't know how to write the word tired. However, even so, she still has to persist on the battlefield for a longer time and give her companions a chance to regain her vitality. She still doesn't believe that she can't beat Li Yang alone. Immediately, Tautu gritted his teeth, looked at Li Yang, and shouted, I won't lose. It's really strong. Li Yang said with a smile. The offensive became more and more violent. This wave of violent offensive went out of control, and Tautu's whole person seemed to be in a dream, and the things he saw gradually became blurred. Finally, she was so abruptly that she fainted on the battlefield. The last member, only Tina is left. Little Tina, you are left with yourself. Li Yang looked at Tina, looked at the delicate jade-like body of the other party carefully, and smiled. Whoever said that, they will soon recover. Tina blushed and said stubbornly. Soon. Tina is also caught in a battle with Li Yang. However, this time, she didn't seem as fierce as that time. Under Li Yang's strong offensive, she quickly retreated and was completely vulnerable. Curtains in the room obscured the scene outside the window. Otherwise, you can see it. Originally, the sun was in the center, but now, the sky has drawn a dark curtain. Everything fell into silence. The entire island has become unusually peaceful, just like an ordinary island. No one expected that on this peaceful island on the surface, there are so many things hidden in the dark. Of course. These are not what Liang needs to think about for the time being. Any conspiracy and tricks are vulnerable in front of him. In the room, there were still intriguing sounds. After Tina's defeat, Robin also recovered a little, but still a little sore. Under Liang's smirk's suggestion, Robin also unlocked a new pose. Naturally, it is impossible to let go before and after. Suddenly, a sharp voice, with a bit of a cry, came out. The edges of Robin's beautiful eyes were filled with mist, and he glared at Liang. She felt the piercing pain that she couldn't bear at all. At this time, her beautiful eyes were full of anger. She looked at Liang fiercely, and said dissatisfiedly, "You lied to me." "No, then, slowly, you'll get used to it." Liang narrowed his eyes slightly and smiled. Gradually. After Robin got used to it, the offensive became more and more violent. NLT, 32 and GT. Chapter 568 _ still lost. A few minutes later. Robin was numb, unlocked new positions, and at first it was not a pain she could bear. But although he got used to it later, he still couldn't stand Liang's violent attack. To move her whole body. Excluded from the team's roster. There are still 3 people left, with fighting power. At this time, Hancock has also woken up, gritted his silver teeth, looked at Robin's numb appearance, swallowed his saliva, and his delicate face also appeared a little uneasy. Facing the monster Liang, can they really win? Never mind. Hancock's pretty face became firm, and his beautiful eyes were fixed on Liang's body, and he fiercely attacked. But soon, Liang turned defense into offense and directly suppressed Hancock. After nearly a bell under the offensive, Hancock was also numb. Fortunately, Hancock had already unlocked the new posture, and Liang, who was familiar with the road, launched a fierce attack on the back. Hancock snorted, and Maimu flashed a painful expression. But then she got used to it. Liang's offensive was as violent as a storm, and she couldn't bear it. A few minutes later, Hancock, like Robin before him, was numb, his limbs weak, and he couldn't move. "The 2 of you were left." Liang looked at Taotu and Tina and said with a smile. "We're not going to throw in the towel." Taotu and Tina gritted their teeth and said with a firm expression. Then, no accident, Taotu rushed to the battlefield first. Her pretty face flushed brightly, and the beauty was indescribable, which made people intoxicated. The battle remains deadlocked. Window covered by curtains. At night. The crescent moon on the horizon has not appeared for a while. In a blink of an eye. On the other side, another round of scorching sun emerged. In battle, time flies fast. The night passed again, and there was a white fish maw on the horizon. The hot sun dispelled the coldness in the air and evaporated all the water. A ray of sunlight shone from the window to the position of the curtains. Inside the room. It's the last round of battle. After Taotu was unlocked in a new position, he couldn't bear the attack for long, so he disarmed and surrendered. He was paralyzed by the side, and Hancock and Robin became prisoners of war. They failed completely. The last person who insisted on fighting was naturally Tina. "Tina, admit defeat." Liang leaned against Tina's ear and breathed with a smile, saying, "Never." Tina blushed and shook her head. "Well then, let you experience the feeling of your comrade in arms. The new posture, you haven't tried it yet. Now, let you feel it." Liang's eyes flickered and he said with a smile. Immediately, the new posture was unlocked successfully. Immediately, there was a sharp sound. Tina Mei looked at Liang with a bit of water mist, and said, "What are you doing?" This newly unlocked posture made her very uncomfortable. Originally, she didn't agree to come, but under Liang's offensive, she couldn't help it. The sting was unbearable. Relax, don't be nervous. Li Ang patted Tina's pink back and said softly. Under his words, Tina gradually relaxed. At this time, Li Ang's offensive gradually unfolded. And Tina gradually adapted, her beautiful eyes were blurred, and her whole body became unnatural. A battle is imminent. Chapter 568 still failed. And LT, 33 and GT. A battle is imminent. The sun on the horizon gradually rose to the center. Time flies by. Tina's body is weak, her beautiful eyes are hazy, and she can't even see things clearly. The final result, needless to say, she is already very clear. This monster is still undefeated. Tina's mouth moved slightly, her voice weak, and she whispered to herself. If you want to beat me, it's not enough. Li Ang rubbed Tina's pink hair and smiled. What a pity. Tina looked at Li Ang vaguely and said helplessly, I feel like I'm about to beat you. Unfortunately, it still won't work. It's not enough, at least, you have to multiply it by 10 times to have the strength to fight me. Li Ang put his arms around Tina's soft body and said softly, sleep well. When you wake up, everything will be fine. Yeah. Tina closed her eyes slightly, her long eyelashes trembling. She was also weak in her limbs and could no longer move. On the contrary, Li Ang was still alive and well, full of energy, and did not feel any tiredness at all. Even, that place is still very fierce, and there is no sign of weakness. Flowers. After all, how can the ability given by the system be covered? Subsequently, Li Ang put the 4 girls together, slowly stretched out his hand, and massaged them. Without the massage, I'm afraid it will be a huge problem whether the 4 of them can walk tomorrow. Of course, it is understandable to take advantage of the occasional advantage during massage. Wrong. How can you take advantage of your own wife? Li Ang narrowed his eyes slightly, looking at the 4 little fairies who were asleep, the corners of his mouth curled up, and his hands slid restlessly. During the massage process, some collisions are inevitable. This guy Robin has really grown. Li Ang couldn't help but smile when he looked at Robin's sleeping delicate face. 0. Feeling the softness in the palm of his hand, he couldn't help but applaud. After his nourishment, they are all developing. Immediately, he started massaging Hancock too, and said with admiration, Hancock is more powerful, he can't even hold it. He started to measure the figure of the 4 women. Found by comparison. The first person to explode is naturally Hancock. Next, to Robin, then to Tautu and Tina. Compared with the face, each has its advantages. Hancock is known as the world's most beautiful woman, and naturally ranks at the top. Secondly, Robin, Tautu, and Tina are really hard to tell who is more beautiful, and each has its own advantages. Forget it, what do I want to do with this? Li Ang laughed, looked at the delicate faces of the 4 girls sleeping, and said bluntly, anyway, isn't it all mine? Why should I think about this? Really? No matter which is more beautiful, which body is more perfect. All belong to him. So, do you still need to think about these things? Keep the massage going, quote. Li Ang's eyes flashed, he smiled and said in a low voice. His hands, restless, massaged the soft spot. Feeling the figure of Hancock's devil really made him intoxicated. At this time, Hancock also snorted, blushing, and opened his eyes dimly. After seeing Li Ang, he gave Li Ang a charming glance, did not speak, and fell asleep again. Even her whole person belongs to Li Ang, so she naturally doesn't care about being taken advantage of by Li Ang. And LT, 34 and GT. Chapter 569 ready to go. The sunny sky turned into night again. The sky pulls up the night. The curved crescent moon hangs on the edge of the sky. The stars are bright, and the little stars twinkle faintly. With the passage of time. The next day. A round of scorching sun rises slowly, bringing warmth to this world. Inside the room. Hancock, Robin, Tautu, and Tina gradually opened their eyes. Their long eyelashes fluttered, and they were covered with a sheet, blocking the infinite spring light. But even with her skin that was as white as jade, she was still incredibly beautiful. Awake. With a smile, Li Ang sat up on the chair, looked at the four girls, and said with a smile. Yeah. Hancock nodded lightly and whispered, "What time is it?" "It's been 2 days since we came to this island, and today is the 3rd day." 017. With a smile, Li Ang saw Hancock's white feet exposed in the air, and he felt something in his heart, and couldn't help scratching the smooth soles of the other party's feet. Ah ha ha. Hancock suddenly lost all his sleepiness, and jumped up immediately, his pretty face flushed slightly, and he glared at Li Ang, saying, "What are you doing? It's so early in the morning. Are you all right?" Li Ang smiled and looked at Hancock, who was alive and kicking. His eyes stayed on the devil's figure, as well as the dense jungle and ferocious mountains. Big satyr. Hancock spat lightly, his face flushed slightly, and he quickly grabbed the clothes on the ground and put them on. At the same time, Robin, Tautu, Tina and others also quickly got their clothes on board. What made them amazed was that after such a crazy battle, their bodies did not bring any abnormality, which was really surprising. "I can actually walk." Robin's beautiful eyes flashed, and he whispered to himself. "So, you have to thank me for giving you such a massage yesterday. Otherwise, you won't be able to walk." Li Ang's eyes flickered and he said with a smile. "HMPH, then who caused our injuries?" Hancock blushed slightly, snorted, and said, "How can this be mixed up?" Li Ang waved his hand and hugged Hancock's slender waist directly. Then, regardless of Hancock's objection, he directly blocked the other party's words and took a hard bite. "Ba ba ba." Hancock coaxed his face, looked at Li Ang, and said angrily, "I haven't washed up yet." "It's okay, it's still so sweet and delicious," Li Ang said directly with a smile on his face. Suddenly, Hancock's face became more and more red, and his expression became a little twisted. "Okay, everyone, ready to go out. We stayed in the room for 2 full days." Li Ang looked at the girls who were dressed and smiled. "Wait a minute, let's sort it out first." Tautu blushed and said quickly. Her hair was still messy, and she quickly walked into the bathroom. Hancock's smooth hair is very natural, and it falls straight down vertically, without any messy feeling at all. Robin's hair is also quite silky and doesn't need much grooming. Naturally, it falls vertically on the back. And Tina also followed Tautu into the bathroom and prepared to wash. "Well, wait for half an hour for you, you should have more than enough time." Li Ang sat down on the chair again and said slowly. Chapter 569 ready to go. NLT, 35 and GT. Li Ang sat down on the chair again and said slowly. "Not enough." In the bathroom, the dissatisfied voices of the 2 women came out. "It's really troublesome." Li Ang waved his hand helplessly and said. Robin also walked into the bathroom step by step. "Here, Hancock is left alone." Li Ang looked at Hancock and said helplessly, "Hancock, come here." "What's wrong?" Hancock's beautiful eyes were puzzled, and he walked over barefoot and asked. "Nothing, just want to hold you." With a smile, Li Ang hugged Hancock directly and put it down on his lap. This made Hancock exclaimed. Maimyu rolled her eyes, looked at Li Ang with amorous feelings, and said dissatisfiedly, "Can't there be a little reminder?" I almost freaked out. Feeling the softness in his arms, Li Ang narrowed his eyes slightly, with a smile on the corner of his mouth. At the same time, seeing Hancock's delicate and white jade feet, he couldn't help reaching out and grabbing it in his hands. Suddenly, Hancock's face became more and more red, and he said, "It's so itchy, what are you doing?" I suddenly discovered that the little feet of our Empress are still very beautiful. Li Ang leaned against Hancock's ear, laughed in a low voice, and breathed. Hancock's body went weak, paralyzed in front of Li Ang. His mouth was like blue, and his face was crimson. Li Ang's hand slid on Hancock's little feet, feeling the tender and soft touch, which was a bit exciting. At this time, Hancock's whole body twitched, and a red cloud slid across his delicate face. "Okay, my husband, let him wash." Hancock couldn't bear it any longer and said quickly. "Then go wash up, I'll wait for you." Only then did Li Ang let go of Hancock. Leaving Li Ang's clutches, Hancock also plunged into the bathroom. The picture of the 4 girls in the bathroom is really intriguing. This made Li Ang's original cooling mood suddenly become a bit warm, and the blood in his body rolled over again. But fortunately, he was directly suppressed by him. If he came back, he was really afraid that he would spend most of the half-month in this house. Really 4 charming goblins. Li Ang looked in the direction of the bathroom, shook his head, and laughed. Soon. About an hour passed. Tautu and Tina walked out of the bathroom one after another. Then, it was Robin's turn, and finally Hancock came out. There was still a trace of water mist on the delicate faces of the 4 girls, revealing the crystal-clear skin, which was as brilliant as a gem, smooth and flawless. It's been a few days, presumably, the Revolutionary Army should have some clues. 4 wives, let's go. Li Ang stood up from the chair and smiled. It was reasonable to wait for an hour. Yeah. Hancock, Robin, Tautu, and Tina nodded lightly. Their impressive figures cannot be concealed. The tall figure, the long straight and slender legs, and the 2 groups in front of him that seemed to be breaking through the clothes made Li Ang a little unable to look away. Robin had also put on a black shirt at this time, which effectively covered his whole body, not even his thighs were exposed. If he put on a hat, it would cover his face. Hancock, Tautu, and Tina put on masks of different colors, covering their delicate faces under the masks to avoid unnecessary troubles. If there is nothing to do, they naturally don't have to wear masks. But because we have to deal with the so-called counterfeit goods, we also have to deal with the mysterious pirate group, so it is also very important to cover up our identity. If they usually go out for sightseeing or something, they won't wear masks. And LT, 36 and GT. Chapter 570_message. Go. Li Ang opened the door, glanced at the 4 beauties with hidden faces behind him, and said. Under his leadership, a group of 5 people gradually walked out of the corridor. When passing by the suite staff member, Li Ang could clearly notice the strange look in the staff member's eyes. Even, there is a bit of shyness. After passing through the staff, the 4 of Hancock's faces became hot. She sees that we haven't been in or out of the room for 2 days. Hancock's pink lips parted slightly, and the delicate face hidden under the mask suddenly turned red to half the sky, and said in a low voice. It's unavoidable, after all, we did stay in the room for 2 days. You say, what can 1 man and 4 women do in the room for so long? Tautu's pretty face moved, and she said softly, her tone inexplicable. Even she felt a little shy. After all, they were recognized directly by others, and what they were doing in the room made them thin-skinned people, naturally very shy, and their mood was not very natural. Just now, her eyes were so strange. Tina couldn't help recalling the look in the staff member's eyes just now, and whispered 23. She always felt that the staff member seemed to have a strange look in his eyes. In my opinion. Robin's voice was as clear as always, and he said slowly, she's heartbroken. Are all women now so open-hearted? Why? Tina was still very puzzled and asked. You are stupid. Tautu blushed and explained, 1 man and 4 women stayed in the room for 2 whole days. Isn't it normal for the staff member to be moved? This means that this man is very strong. So, that's it. Tina's face turned crimson, and she realized it immediately. Her feelings, her pure thoughts, were about to be polluted. I didn't expect these women to be so open. Don't talk about feelings, but, look at time. Hancock and Robin's delicate faces are also ruddy and bloody, but they have never seen such an open woman. Okay, let's go. Li Ang was not surprised, he was not surprised anyway. There are many such women. He has also seen a lot of women who are more open than this. So, what is happening right now is nothing but insignificant. For him, it was just a normal thing. However, it brought a lot of shock to the four of Hancock, and their ideology is still quite conservative. If you want to become a couple, then of course, the first element is the emotional problem. They naturally have deep feelings for Liang, so they will sit with Liang on indescribable things. Well, let's go. Tina blushed, nodded quickly, and said. She found that her own thoughts were a little less pure. Soon, a group of 5 people successfully walked from the hotel to the street. The streets are crowded and lively. There are people in all kinds of clothes, so Liang and the others wearing masks did not cause any alarm to the street, and everyone was used to it. If the masks are removed, their beautiful and delicate facial features will cause a sensation. Wearing masks, wearing weird clothes, there are a lot of people. On this prosperous island, it has been gradually accepted by people. Chapter 570_message. NLT, 37 and GT. On this prosperous island, it has been gradually accepted by people. Returning to the base the same way, presumably, they have been waiting for a long time. Liang's eyes twinkled and said in a low voice. Good. The 4 girls nodded and had no objection. Before that, let's eat something to fill our stomach. Liang glanced at the food stalls on the side of the street and smiled. After half an hour, a group of 5 people gradually moved closer to the base of the Revolutionary Army in a familiar direction. The dilapidated floor quickly appeared in Liang's vision. Walking towards the door of the floor, after slowly pushing it open, the figure inside also appeared in Liang's line of sight. A group of revolutionary troops dressed in black still haven't changed their attire. How? Liang looked at the many revolutionary troops in front and asked. Have got the preliminary news. A middle-aged man stood up, revealing a face covered in tattoos, looking at Liang with a bit of fear in his eyes that could not be concealed. Tell me about it. Liang said with a smile and twinkling eyes. Hearing this, the middle-aged man took a deep breath, relieved his inner tension a little, and said bluntly, we found out that this imposter is going to attend a music competition at 8 o'clock tonight. A judge. At that time, the audience will attract the entire island, including the people from the surrounding islands, and the scene is bound to be very lively and noisy. And he will also appear there. Although I can't find his specific address, but knowing that he will be here 100%, it should be almost the same. Quote. 8 o'clock in the evening. Attend a music competition. Liang narrowed his eyes slightly, and said with a smile. This fake, really thinks he is a real person. Also as a judge, does he really have the qualifications? Excuse me, Mr. Liang, do you need our help? The middle-aged man looked at Liang and asked tentatively. No, it's a good result if you can provide me with information. Liang shook his head, smiled lightly, and said, as for what happened in 403, leave it all to me. You are responsible for clearing up some of the mess. Yes. The middle-aged man nodded quickly, not daring to resist. That's right. Liang's eyes flashed, and he said, I'm worried that the pirate group and this counterfeit are not in the same group. If they are not in the same group, then we still have to find the trace of the pirate group. So, before this, when I dealt with this fake, you guys also scattered some of your strength to search for the traces of that pirate group. The two-pronged approach will make it more stable. If there is no progress on my side, I hope you will find that group of pirates. Do you have any opinions? Finished talking. Liang looked calm, looking at the 50 or so revolutionary troops in front. No comments. The middle-aged man shook his head and agreed. They are quite proficient in searching for some news. Moreover, they don't need to rush to the battlefield, they will definitely be very happy with such a job. There is nothing more reassuring than leaving it to Liang to rush into the battlefield. In this world, in terms of force, he would not think that someone could escape Li Yang's palm. Especially this kind of counterfeit, it is definitely impossible to survive until tomorrow. No one can stop what Li Yang wants to kill. Chapter 571_Party. So, you guys should also start splitting up. As for tonight's music conference, just leave it to me. If he has connections with those pirates, it will be even better. And you can also save a little effort. But if they have nothing to do with the pirates, then you need to act next. Li Yang's face was calm, and he spoke again and said. Under his words, the 50-odd revolutionary army gradually dispersed. They broke into pieces and left the dilapidated building at once. Here, there are still 4 people, Li Yang and Hancock, for a total of 5 people. The surroundings were very empty and silent. Let's go to, and wait for the music convention tonight. I'll see who has the guts. I've wanted to meet this guy for a long time. Li Yang's eyes flashed brightly, and he said slowly. This guy, it's not a pity to die, 470. Hancock's pretty face was icy cold, his murderous intent fluctuated, and he said. Dare to pretend to be Li Yang, this simply made her want to slash the other party with thousands of pieces. The only thing that involves Li Yang is something she cannot tolerate. Tautu, Tina, and Robin also showed a bit of anger, nodded and said, yes, this imposter is too bold. This time, after catching him, he must be killed. Several, what's the time now, why don't we go shopping? With a smile, Li Yang looked at the angry expressions of the 4th daughter and relieved his mood. Yeah. Hancock took a deep breath and calmed the killing intent in his heart. Meimu looked at Li Yang with a bit of shame. In front of Li Yang, and in front of other people, his face is naturally different. Then let's go. Li Yang waved his hand and left the dilapidated building with the 4 Hancock behind him. Returning to the street again, Li Yang's ears also heard a burst of whispers. I am looking forward to the music conference tonight. No, if Lord Li Yang can play a song, then we will be very happy. There will be a chance. Master Li Yang should meet our small request. Besides, there are some talented players who will also start their confrontation. After all, who doesn't want to get the chance to control the Sea Kings? Quote. There was a lot of talk about the music conference tonight, which almost swept the entire island. Basically it can be concluded that fake will definitely appear. Now, when he is confident in his heart, he has gained the supreme worship of others by pretending to be Li Yang, and his energy is also very terrifying. On this island, this counterfeit can already be called to the point of covering the sky with only one hand. Under normal circumstances, as long as someone dares to spread the news that he is a fake, it will definitely lead to his deadly murder. Therefore, after so long, the people on the entire island, instead of doubting his identity, worship him more and more. This has created the current situation. More and more people worship, and more people dare not speak. Ordinary forces can't provoke the residents of the entire island at all. There are too many residents, especially since they all have a common goal of worship, and they are willing to shed their blood for this goal. This is the power of the people. Unfortunately, this gorgeous imposter didn't know that he actually attracted a real Li Yang. If he had received this news, I'm afraid, he would have already fled. Find a quiet place to do it. Leon suggested. Hancock et al. Have no objection. Chapter 571_Party. And LT, 39 and GT. Hancock et al. Have no objection. They found a place to sit, and occasionally the voices of those conversations came from their ears. This made Hancock and the others' expressions even colder. This imposter must die. Hancock's red lips parted slightly, and his beautiful eyes were murderous. I didn't expect that this imposter has already reached this point. If it is not stopped in time, I am afraid that he will spread his influence to the nearby islands. Once the power is established, then they are a very powerful force that cannot be underestimated. There are really too many. It's a pity that the imposter doesn't know yet that death has fallen on his head. Quote. Is my name also something he can steal at will? The corner of Liang's mouth raised an arc, and he smiled faintly. However, even he has to admit that the ability of this fake is still quite strong. In such a short period of time, the situation has been greatly changed. This kind of ability is also considered a talent. Admittedly, it was definitely planned. But even with a plan, you have to do it yourself to get this result. It's just weird, he shouldn't pretend to be Liang's name. Otherwise, he may live longer, and his achievements will naturally be higher. Time flies by. In a blink of an eye. The scorching sun on the horizon gradually descended, and a round crescent moon gave off a hazy halo. A dark curtain rose up in the sky, and the temperature in the air plummeted. The whole island is filled with a cold air. But in the central square, in a vast lobby. Here, there is a lot of hustle and bustle. It's finally about to start, get excited. My children also participated, I hope they can get a good ranking. The best thing is to let Lord Liang treat our children differently and teach them personally. My children also participated in the competition. What a night you are looking forward to. Come on. Quote. The crowd surrounded the entire hall. Even though it can accommodate tens of thousands of people, there are still many people in the area outside the door, arguing with red ears, in order to compete for the qualification to enter. Visible. To what extent the whole island has been affected by that fake? Not far away. Liang led Hancock, Taotu, Tina, and Robin behind him, and walked step by step to the music hall in front. It's so hot on 3.3. Tina's pink lips parted slightly, her tone inexplicable, said. This counterfeit has a lot of cards, but unfortunately, he doesn't know that he has already attracted the deity. The corner of Hancock's mouth twitched, and the delicate face hidden under the mask became meaningful. Tonight, it's more than just lively. If that imposter dares to appear, then tonight will be his death day. If these people find out that the person they've always admired is just a fake, will they break down? I'm really looking forward to it. Taotu's beautiful eyes flashed and said slowly. They won't believe it. Robin pondered for a moment and explained, they have been brainwashed to completely believe the words of the fake. No way can change their thinking. Chapter 572-admission. Robin is right. Liang nodded, glanced at the multitude of people in front of him, and said with a faint smile, once they approve of one thing and want to change their thinking, it will be quite difficult. This imposter is quite accurate. If he doesn't impersonate me, the development will be better. It's a pity that such a good plan has met me. Tonight, let's also appreciate the level of other people's music. After that, we need to do something serious. Finished talking. Liang led Hancock and others behind him and walked into the crowd very lightly. A terrifying aura pervaded. Anyone who is close to the five of them will be bounced off unconsciously, and they will not be able to touch a corner of their clothes at all. Don't squeeze. Give me a chance, I'm going in. Go away, don't stand in my way, I also want to watch Master Liang's wonderful performance. My child is inside, please let me in. Quote. There was a lot of talk, and everyone found a reason to enter the venue. These people did not find it. The real Liang passed by their ears. They missed the opportunity to see the deity 23. And instead they respected a fake so much, which is really a great irony and ridiculous. Liang was expressionless, and bounced off everyone around him very calmly. It went well. A group of 5 people entered the venue ahead. One look. There are people all around, turning the entire music hall into a stadium. There are people standing everywhere, and the crowd is so dark that there is no end in sight. Loud voices spread all around. It's so lively. Liang said slowly with a smile. Seeing such a lively scene, he really couldn't bear to destroy it. If he hadn't pretended to be his name, he still wanted to seriously savor the process of the so-called music conference. appeared. Suddenly, a voice came out, resounding through the sky. Liang led Hancock and others to the front position smoothly, found a chair to sit down at will, and looked at the central area of the music conference in front. They're about to start. Hancock's beautiful eyes flashed, and his face was calm. He said, "No hurry, let's enjoy it first, other people's music is not bad." Liang always kept a smile, and could not see any sense of urgency. Anyway, in his eyes tonight, that imposter is a dead person. Don't worry, it's useless. Could this change the outcome? Anyone who comes, can't change this result. Counterfeit goods are bound to die, even if the 4 emperors came in person, it would be of no use. That's right, let's enjoy the live music first. It's still a while before the imposter appears. Visually, he should appear when the show is about to end. Tautu nodded and agreed, saying, "By the way, later, what are we going to do?" Robin blinked and asked softly, "How do you do it?" Liang looked calm, smiled lightly, and replied, "Does this require thinking?" That's right. Robin was stunned, showing a smile. How to do it? After seeing the counterfeit, just grab him and kill him in front of everyone. Wrong. Chapter 572_admission. Wrong. It should be said that we need to interrogate the other party to see if they know the pirate group that kidnapped 3,000 children. If you don't know it, just kill it. Even if it can be brainwashed again, so what? In the face of absolute power, any strategy seems vulnerable. As far as tactics are concerned, it's not that Liang can't figure out a way to deal with the fake, it just takes a certain amount of time. In this case, it is better to be simple and straightforward. Grab the opponent directly, kill the opponent and you're done. Conspiracy or something has little to do with Liang. He also doesn't need to use tricks to kill people, this is too low level. Murder is nothing but an easy thing, so why bother? Played, the first player, Obo, a talented player from North Street. A voice shouted. Everyone's eyes are looking at the center. A young man, carrying a piano, appeared in everyone's sight. A musical contest. Liang sat on the seat next to him and smiled with a little interest. Do you want to use this method to cultivate talents? Then, control the Sea Kings. He is just a fake and doesn't have such ability at all. However, does he want to cultivate such a talent? Then, he can dominate the entire sea area. The ambition of this fake is quite big. But can he really make it happen? Tautu's eyes narrowed slightly, and said with a hint of sarcasm. There is only one person in this world. Only Liang can do such a thing. Even this imposter doesn't know, even how he cultivates it, it doesn't make any sense. Because, in an era, there is only one person. This person is already Liang. Therefore, the following people must not be able to attract the Sea Kings with the sound of the piano. Relax your mind, anyway, he's just a dead man. Why do we need to care about him so much? Isn't this disturbing our good mood? Liang rubbed Tautu's hair and said with a smile. His mind has always been calm. That so-called fake was just a dead person in his eyes. Angry at the dead. Isn't this asking for trouble? Yes. Tautu nodded lightly and said with a smile. It's not worth it to be angry with a dead person. At this time, everyone fell silent and looked at the young man in the center of the field. And young people also launched his performance. A crisp sound lingered and spread out. Liang let out a ha-ha, feeling a little bored, and said, at this level, I haven't gotten started yet. He sounded boring. This is a very fatal flaw for a player. Everyone feels bored, so naturally there is no need to continue playing, just declare failure. I don't know, what is the level of that counterfeit? The smile on Liang's face was meaningful and he said slowly. Compared with you, there is no comparison. Otherwise, he doesn't need to impersonate. Hancock rolled his eyes and said involuntarily. That's it. Tautu, Robin, and Tina also nodded in agreement. The counterfeit goods are only under the control of the power, and their level is definitely not comparable to Liang. Even whether he can play the piano, this is a question that needs to be seriously considered. NLT, 42 and GT. Chapter 573 _ Counterfeit Goods. It's so boring. If I knew it earlier, I should have come later. Liang waved his hand helplessly and said slowly. My ears are about to hear something wrong. If I have to judge the sound of this piano, I am afraid that even a novice who is just getting started can't be considered. I originally thought that I could hear some interesting piano sounds here. But now, Liang himself overestimated the level of the people here. From your point of view, it's definitely not in the eye. Hancock's long eyelashes trembled, and he couldn't help but complain. No no no. Liang shook his head and said, I'm just commenting from an ordinary person's point of view. If I look at it from my point of view, then I really want to rush to kill. Really? To comment from his point of view, then it cannot be commented on the basis of incompetence. Rather, what kind of garbage is this? He couldn't even listen. Now, he really forcibly restrained the restlessness in his heart. Soon. The personnel in the front area are also constantly changing. One after another, the personnel are constantly changing. The atmosphere at the scene was still hot. Most of them come for fakes. He should be coming out soon, right? Liang's mouth moved slightly, and he whispered to himself. Since he is a judge, he naturally has to witness all the contestants in the audience. However, there is another possibility. There are more than one judges. This kind of primary screening, there is no need for this counterfeit product to appear. After all, on this island, his cards are still at a standstill, and naturally he has to stay coquettishly until the last appearance is the finale. This made Liang very boring, especially when he felt the urging magic sound in front of him. It was not too uncomfortable. I can't listen anymore. Hancock's beautiful eyes said with a bit of dryness. Me too. Tautu, Tina, and Robin nodded one after another, waved their hands helplessly, and said. How did these players who are obviously not yet entry-level players participate in the competition? Are there any barriers to participation in this music conference? Walk around a little. Liang smiled at the four and suggested. What if he shows up? Hancock asked with some doubts in her beautiful eyes. That's right, if he disappears when he appears, we'll have to spend a while to find his whereabouts. We've waited for the past few days, and we don't care about this time. Robin Maymay said with a bit of approval. Then let's wait, but it's too boring here. It can take the time of the five of us, and this flaming card is quite big. Liang joked with a smile. If the imposter knew that Liang was waiting for him, he would be flattered. Whoa! Suddenly, the atmosphere of the audience exploded again, and it was very lively. A burst of clamorous voices lingered around, and the sound was loud and resounding through the sky. Visually, the number of people here will probably not be less than 30,000. This entire venue can accommodate so many people. It is really a spectacular scene. In addition, outside the venue, there were still groups of people who were talking endlessly, and they had to squeeze in if they broke their heads. The commotion caused by a counterfeit is really not that big. With so many people seeing him off, he deserves to die. With a smile, Liang looked at the picture of a young man playing in front of him, thinking to himself. Chapter 573 _ Counterfeit Goods. NLT, 43 and GT. With a smile, Liang looked at the picture of a young man playing in front of him, thinking to himself. So many people come here for fake goods. If Liang made a sudden move, it would definitely arouse the anger of this group of people. But so what? Will he care? Of course not. Ordinary people, in Liang's eyes, are always just ordinary people, without any threat. When the overlord color spreads, this group of people will quiet down. If it doesn't work, then consider killing all the people on this island and sinking the entire island into the bottom of the sea, which can also effectively kill these people. Although it will hurt innocent people, Li Ang doesn't care. People die every day in this world. People from an island are nothing more than important things in his opinion. Moreover, these people have been brainwashed. It is better to just disappear into this world and save trouble later. At that time, if the pirates hide in the island, they will also usher in a devastating disaster. Everyone on this island is not immune. Would you like to destroy this island? If such a large island is destroyed, it will be quite exciting to think about it. I haven't destroyed an island yet. I can try it later. Li Ang's eyes flickered, observing the surrounding environment. The surrounding crowd did not know that a terrifying monster had already listed them all as dead. Their lives and deaths are in Li Ang's thoughts. The survival of this island is also in Li Ang's thoughts. Destroying the island is actually not that difficult. For ordinary people, this may be an impossible feat, but for Li Ang, it is just a matter of raising his hand. He hadn't tried it yet, but after using the first-generation Gito and the holy clothes of blood, the power that exploded with all his strength was so spectacular. Whenever he thinks of this, he can't wait and wants to try it. Can he cut off this island with one knife? Diaresis yes, but it still won't work. So, a few more knives will do. With a faint smile, Li Ang thought so in his heart. Destroying this island with one knife is still a bit difficult. After all, this island accommodates so many people, and the area is naturally not small. However, if one knife cannot solve it, then 2 or 3 knives. Within 5 knives, this island will be wiped out. If 5 knives can't be destroyed, then Li Ang can just throw away the first-generation Goosh, and don't use knives again in the future. This is too embarrassing. Possibly aware of Li Ang's thoughts, the first-generation ghost trembled a little, looking very panicked. Why are you so cowardly? I just thought about it. Li Ang glanced at the first-generation Goosh in his hand, expressionless, said. Suddenly, the first-generation Goosh gradually calmed down. This is not to blame it, Zhao Zhao, its fear of Li Ang has long been deep in the bones. Time flies by. In a blink of an eye. Several hours passed. The contestants are constantly changing. Among them, a lot of people who have been successfully promoted have also been screened for the final competition. The final test is coming. Mr. Li Ang, let's play too. Lord Li Ang, Lord Li Ang. Lord Li Ang is about to appear, so excited and looking forward to it. Quote. Everyone was talking excitedly. Are you going to play a fake? Li Ang's face was calm, looking at the scene in front of him, said. There were bursts of shouts in my ears, all shouting the words, Li Ang. This made Li Ang feel a little weird. In the beautiful eyes of Hancock, Tautu, Tina, and Robin, there was also a flash of coldness, and the murderous intent fluctuated, looking forward, waiting for the appearance of the fake. NLT, 44 and GT. Chapter 574 hands-on. In Li Ang's line of sight, a young man in white clothes walked out of the escort step by step from the direction of the backstage. At this time, the audience cheered lively, and the noise resounded through the sky. Everyone shouted excitedly. Lord Li Ang, Lord Li Ang. It's really Lord Li Ang, I finally saw him in person. Lord Li Ang, as a commenter, I just said that there is no mistake. Today, I finally have the honor to meet Mr. Li Ang, it is a great honor. Quote. There was a lot of talk, and everyone cheered with excitement. With the support of everyone, the elegant man in white clothes gradually came to the center. With his introduction, the atmosphere at the scene almost exploded, and the liveliness was extremely lively. After feeling the liveliness of the scene, a deep sense of satisfaction also appeared on his face. At this time, off-site area, Li Ang and the other 5 were the few who remained calm and did not shout. Of course, there were also many people who silently looked at the fake in the center without speaking. Because they all know that this so-called Li Ang is just an out-and-out fake, but they haven't planned to join the murky waters yet. Therefore, they chose 667 to sit on the sidelines. As long as it doesn't concern themselves, they are naturally willing to appreciate this farce. With so many people landing on this island, it is impossible that they are the only ones who have discovered this. It is for this reason that they dare not act rashly. Seeing such a lively scene in front of them, they were all moved. No wonder, this fake can last so long without being recognized. Naturally, because he has cleaned the heads of the masses, everyone has already thought that he is the real Li Ang. It is for this reason that when other people report him, the consequences are self-evident. At the same time, Li Ang held the newspaper in both hands, slowly lifted the newspaper, put it in his sight, and compared with the man in white in front of him, the characters in the portrait. Both are exactly the same. It is already certain that this person is the so-called counterfeit. Are you going to start? Hancock's beautiful eyes flashed a little coldness, looked at Li Ang, and asked softly. Wait a minute, let him live a few more minutes. Li Ang shook his head, threw the newspaper aside casually, and smiled meaningfully. Under his words, Hancock and the others suppressed the killing intent in their hearts. Mamu stared at the imposter in front of them, without blinking, ready to attack. The audience applauded and the voice was loud and clear. Everyone is excited for the appearance of this fake. Everyone on the entire island was shouting loudly, and the sound passed around and enveloped the audience. It's really intense. Li Ang narrowed his eyes slightly, and said lightly with a smile. These people who reacted violently were really brainwashed by this fake. However, even so, it was difficult to stop him from wanting to kill this imposter. These idiots have no eyeballs, and they don't even know they've been deceived. Peach Rabbit's beautiful eyes flashed a bit of coldness and said. It's no wonder they are. After all, they are just victims. Under the control of a huge force, it is normal for them to be brainwashed, nothing wrong. Li Ang was not very surprised, he had already deduced such a result. Under the secret promotion of a huge force, people are influenced by plans and brainwashed, which is just a normal thing. Chapter 574 Hands-on. And LT, 45 and GT. Under the secret promotion of a huge force, people are influenced by plans and brainwashed, which is just a normal thing. Ordinary people can naturally distinguish between falsehoods and falsehoods. However, it was only under the impetus of no one that they could keep the heart that they looked at calmly. If it is dominated by a terrifying force in the dark, even a smart person will eventually fall into it and be unable to extricate himself. This crowd, there is no way to pull them up. Li Ang also has no obligation to save these rabble. All he wants to do is kill, that's all. As for saving people, it was not within his scope of thinking. Whether these people can break free from it in the end is none of his business. Lord Li Ang, Lord Li Ang. Still the audience was screaming. This made Li Ang's expression even more exciting. He knew that these people were calling his name, but there was another person pretending to be. This feeling is indescribable. Li Ang couldn't help it, and wanted to wipe out this so-called counterfeit now. Everyone, be quiet. Standing beside the imposter, there was a burly middle-aged man who shouted loudly. A harsh sound came out loud and clear. Everyone in the audience fell into a silent atmosphere, not saying a word. This made Li Ang burst into amazement. It seems that the influence of this fake is quite scary. Just a word from the people around you can make the audience fall into a quiet atmosphere. This must be achieved with great influence. Visible. After replacing the name, how smooth the life of the fake is. Next, we have invited us, Mr. Li Ang, to bring comments to everyone. The burly middle-aged man shouted with a bold voice. Lord Li Ang, Lord Li Ang. The audience shouted violently, and the voice was full of excitement. Their blood was rolling in their bodies, and their expressions were full of excitement, which could not be concealed on their faces. Tens of thousands of people in the audience were cheering and applauding, and only a few people, 0.01%, kept their faces indifferent and watched this scene happen. This part of the people is naturally very clear that this so-called Li Ang is just an out-and-out counterfeit. What do they have to admire about a fake? Not a real Li Ang. Only the real Li Ang standing in front of them can arouse their admiration. And this fake is far from qualified. This guy really won't be exposed. The whole island is under his control. It's no wonder that no one exposed him. I'm afraid that he will be killed before he is exposed. So, we just watch it quietly. There is no need to get involved in the disputes here. Everyone has heard it clearly. Don't get involved in the disputes here. Maybe we will stay here forever. It's unclear what Li Ang they can do. Quote. A group of people who recognize the identity of the counterfeit also chose to remain silent. Under the eyes of everyone in the audience. In the center of the venue, the elegant man in white clothes finally looked forward and said slowly, "Good evening, everyone, it's a pleasure to meet you again. Lord Li Ang." A sharp sound came out. This made the impostor look very confident, raised his head, and with a faint smile, savoring the explosive atmosphere of the scene, he was about to linger. At this time, suddenly, a voice rang in his ear. "Are you enjoying the feeling of being admired by thousands of people and respected by countless people?" Chapter 575 Big Shock. Li Ang had a smile on his face. I don't know when, he was already standing behind the fake. His expression was natural, without any tension, he seemed quite comfortable. He opened his mouth slowly, looked at the back of the impostor, and said with a light smile, "Then, do you know that you are in danger? Are you still here enjoying the feeling of being admired by others?" At this time, the impostor's whole body stiffened, and a sharp breath flashed in his eyes. He didn't turn his head, but asked in a deep voice, "Who are you?" "That's a good question, who am I?" The corners of Li Ang's mouth were slightly raised, revealing a deep smile, and said, "What do you want to do? There are tens of thousands of people here. If you do something to me, it will be equivalent to causing public anger. Do you think you can escape?" The impostor remained calm and said coldly, "Outrage." Li Ang laughed again and said, "Then, how do you think I should deal with the matter in front of me? I think, Mr. Li Ang, you must have a plan. You let me go." Impostor was expressionless and said lightly, "Although I don't know what your purpose is. However, if you do something to me, no one here will let you go. If you let me go, I will let you go. Is it so fair? There will be absolutely no retaliation against me." Li Ang's eyes flickered and he smiled plainly. "No, I guarantee with my personality that I will never retaliate against you." The impostor shook his head and said solemnly. It's just that his eyes full of anger and murderous intentions ups and downs, but exposed his true thoughts. Actually, dare to do something to himself in public. Such people, of course, have to get rid of them quickly. If he doesn't get rid of it, he won't be able to sleep peacefully tonight. However, the best way at present is to stabilize this person. Who is this person? This was the question in his heart, and he didn't even know why the other party did it. At the same time, after Li Ang appeared, holding the first-generation Guido and placing it on the shoulders of the counterfeit goods has already caused everyone to be shocked and terrified. The sharp first-generation Onikiru was placed on the neck of the counterfeit. It is for this reason that the counterfeit goods dare not move, for fear of being cut off all at once. In this case, all his plans will be in vain. Protect Lord Li Ang. Around the counterfeit, there were still several middle-aged strong men who responded and shouted in shock. They never found out. When did this guy appear? I'm impulsive, otherwise, when my hand shakes, his head will fall to the ground. Li Ang pointed to the counterfeit goods in front of him and smiled faintly. Don't move. The counterfeit also panicked, took a deep breath, and shouted loudly. Suddenly, everyone stopped, looking at Li Ang's eyes, very vigilant, and deep anger, completely exposed on the whole face. At this time, the crowd outside the venue was also shocked and angry. They looked at the arena, the imposter held hostage by Liang, as if the person they admired the most in their hearts had been insulted, and the anger in their hearts emerged again and again. This damn fellow, what is he doing? He actually used a knife to hold Lord Liang hostage. This is simply too hateful. Damn it, Lord Liang is being held hostage. Who is this guy? Quick, think of a way to save Lord Liang, otherwise, if Lord Liang is killed, then we will have no one to ask for advice. Lord Liang, you have brought us hope. Quote. There was a lot of talk, and everyone stared at the field in front of them with those angry eyes. There are also some more radical people who have directly crossed the fence and are ready to rush forward. Chapter 575 Big Shock. NLT, 47 and GT. There are also some more radical people who have directly crossed the fence and are ready to rush forward. Tens of thousands of people were excited, and the scene was extremely hot. Every civilian is naturally very angry when they see counterfeit goods being held hostage. They couldn't wait, and immediately rushed up to smash Liang, who was holding the counterfeit goods, into 10,000 pieces. It's ridiculous that they didn't know that the real Liang was the one who caused their anger. This is a great irony. The deity did not know him in front of him, but instead held a fake to such a high position. Except for these alarmed, angry crowds. In the crowd, there are still some people who have been very calm before. However, when they saw the face of the person holding the counterfeit goods, their expressions instantly became shocked. No one could understand the astonishment and shock in their hearts. Their eyes enlarged infinitely, staring at the scene in front of them, unable to look away. This man. A pirate's lips trembled, his expression full of astonishment, and he lost his voice. Can't be wrong. Another pirate took out the newspaper, and the portraits on the newspaper were completely opposite to the common newspapers here. This was an unmodified newspaper. And the above portrait, of course, is Liang. Simply, exactly the same. A group of pirates felt a panic in their hearts, their throats were dry, and their eyes were fixed on Liang, who was in the center of the front, and then looked at the figure in the newspaper. Suddenly, in their hearts, they came to an accurate conclusion. This person is definitely Liang, there is no need to have any doubts. Liang. A pirate took a deep breath and shouted with fear on his face. However, his voice was also drowned in the shouts of the crowd. The people around didn't pay attention to his words. The crowd still believed that the person they were calling was the imposter. But everyone didn't know that the person they were really shouting was the young man standing beside the imposter. It was this young man who gave them infinite shock. The deity and the counterfeit. This time, things are really too interesting. I'm really looking forward to how things will evolve in the future. When the counterfeit sees the deity, how wonderful his expression will be. After all, it's not good for him to pretend to be someone who dares to pretend to be this terrifying monster. This is simply himself, and he wants to kill himself. Quote. The expressions of many pirates became particularly exciting. They looked at the dramatic scene in front of them with lingering fears, and their expressions were full of anticipation. Now, how will things develop? Simply so much fun. If the imposter really encounters the monster Liang, what will be the result? As for the so-called power of the fake, in their eyes, they would not think that this so-called power can shake the real Liang, a terrifying monster. Want to shake Liang? Do you really think that you are the headquarters of the Navy? Moreover, even the Navy headquarters did not dare to face the collision with Liang. This so-called counterfeit, the power he relies on, can it still compete with the Navy? This is of course impossible. Chapter 576-Threaten Me. I am really looking forward to it. A small number of people who have already recognized the situation clearly felt a burst of curiosity in their hearts. At the same time, they also became very happy. After all, when they first saw the arrogant appearance of the counterfeit goods, it really made them feel very unhappy. When did counterfeiters become so arrogant? They can't really see it, but they are a little afraid of the forces behind the impostor, so they dare not have the intention to act rashly. But now, when they saw the appearance of the deity, all the unhappiness in their hearts disappeared. Now, what they are looking forward to is, what will happen? What will the counterfeit do? After encountering the deity, what way can I save my life? Different from this small group of people, most of them are roaring in anger, staring at Li Ang, who is holding the counterfeit goods in front of them, and shouting constantly. The guy who should die in 170, let go of Lord Li Ang, do you know what you are doing? You are kidnapping, but Li Ang, who can control the Sea Kings, if you touch him, we will definitely let you stay here forever today. Damn boy, I told you to let go of Lord Li Ang right away. If you hurt Lord Li Ang, I will kill you. Quote. The anger of the masses turned into verbal attacks. Everyone glared at Li Ang, men, women and children, all had been completely brainwashed. The location in the center of the field. Li Ang held the first-generation Goosh with a faint smile, unmoved. Listen, how many people have you provoked anger? There are tens of thousands of people here and hundreds of thousands of people outside the arena. Could it be that you can kill so many people? The counterfeit was fearless and had no fear of being held hostage by Li Ang behind him. Thinking, he was still able to calmly explain the situation to Li Ang, and said with a smile, so, I advise you, if you are sensible, quickly remove your knife. If you hurt me, you will be in big trouble. There are tens of thousands of people here who will crush you into powder in an instant, leaving you with no bones. Moreover, you will also be reprimanded, and even if you die, you will have no peace. I advise you, let me go, I can assure you. You will never have a life-threatening problem, and I will escort you out of here. Avoid those crazy crowds that accidentally crush you. Quote. The imposter still seemed very calm, as if everything was under control. Around. A group of strong men also stared at Li Ang's figure all the time, holding weapons and looking very vigilant. Boy, let go of Lord Li Ang, we agree to let you leave here safely. Although I don't understand your intentions, but if you do it now, there is absolutely no chance of you leaving here alive. The best way is to let go of Lord Li Ang. That's right, kid, if you're obsessed, you'll die here too. No one wants to see a lose-lose situation. Let go of Lord Li Ang. Quote. Many strong men shouted with grim expressions. Did you hear it? Imposter smiled lightly and said, they, tens of thousands of people in the audience, are advising you to let me go. So, what will you do? Are you going to kill me? If you kill me, you will also run away. No. If you don't want to die, then I advise you to listen to me and let me go. Otherwise, I can't stop the crazy crowd. What's your opinion? He never looked back, as if many things were under control. A wise man, obviously, just like him. Whenever he encounters a problem that threatens his life, he will not lose his calm mind. Coincidentally, the enemy Li Ang likes to encounter the most is the one who thinks he has a plan. At that time, the confidence of the other party will be crushed inch by inch. Chapter 576_Threaten Me. NGT, page 1/2. Please click the next page to continue reading. NLT, 49 NGT. At that time, the confidence of the other party will be crushed inch by inch. This kind of pleasure is simply self-evident. You're so confident that I can't kill you and leave. Li Ang narrowed his eyes slightly, and said with a smile. So, what do you think? Surrounded by tens of thousands of people, unless you have the ability to reach the sky, you won't be able to fly. Besides, the guards around me. Look at it, which one of them is a fuel-efficient lamp? To tell you the truth, they have devil fruit abilities. Do you know who it is? Once you kill me, they will launch a fierce attack, and you will not survive. The imposter, still full of confidence, said slowly. It turns out that you think that you are in my hands, and you really don't have the ability to resist. Then, you are not Li Ang. If you are Li Ang, you are not so cowardly at all. That Li Ang can suppress the existence of the Navy headquarters. How could I be able to kill him? But you obviously seem to be different from the rumored Li Ang. Then, I want to ask you a question. Who are you? Why are you impersonating Li Ang? Can you give me an explanation? Not sure, I will let you go. With a smile, Li Ang stood behind the counterfeit, with a strange tone, said. I'm afraid, the counterfeit goods in front of me are still unclear. He is Li Ang. If the impostor knew this, he would not dare to maintain such a confident attitude. Oh, you know I'm not Li Ang. The impostor flashed a bit of murderous intent in his eyes, and said in a low voice. This kind of thing has always been his taboo. Since he became the high-profile Li Ang of the island, he is very shy about revealing his true identity in front of him. Now he enjoys such an identity very much. Posing as a person, he was able to enjoy so much, which made him reluctant to give up this identity. Therefore, many people have appeared and accused him of not being Li Ang. But what about the end result? No doubt. In the end, those who accused him of not being Li Ang were all dead. All of them, under the influence of the forces under his control, were killed silently. Even the last corpse could not be preserved and disappeared directly into this world. Don't you know, don't say this kind of thing. The impostor's eyes became cold, and he said lightly. 1.5. Immediately. The strong men around are also more cautious, and are always ready to break out the offensive. Li Ang was surrounded by himself in the center. And the tens of thousands of people around, with angry faces, are constantly approaching. The scale of the battle of tens of thousands of people is naturally very large. As you walk, the ground trembles. So, are you threatening me? Li Ang's eyes flickered, and with a smile, he said, you know, your life is in my hands. Even so, you still dare to threaten me. Not afraid, will I kill you directly. Unless, you want to be buried with me yourself. The impostor's tone became cold, without any emotion, said. Funeral. Li Ang laughed, he was really amused. The confidence of this counterfeit is really not ordinary. Chapter 577 _ The confidence of counterfeiters. Yes, you kill me, and you will be buried with me. Is it really worth it to kill yourself to kill me? What do you think? The counterfeiter still intends to advise, without panic. Even with the first-generation Onito hanging around his neck, he didn't panic in the slightest. Visible. His mentality is still quite stable. This made Li Ang have to admit that this counterfeit still had a certain amount of courage and resourcefulness to be able to achieve such a scene today. Unfortunately, if he hadn't met him, this fake would still be able to continue to grow his power. But it's a pity that the counterfeit came across his real character. You haven't answered me yet. It stands to reason that if you were Li Ang, you should have been able to kill me just now. Li Ang's strength is not as weak as yours. So, what was your previous identity? Can you tell me? Li Ang continued to ask with a smile. You bastard. The impostor became a little angry, and his tone became bitingly cold. Impersonating Li Ang has always been a taboo in his heart. He doesn't like people accusing him that he is a fake. Such a person would eventually be reduced to a cold corpse in order to vent his inner anger. Did you know that the bodies of people who talk to me like this can be piled up like a mountain? The impostor said coldly, looking at the angry crowd in front of his eyes, and his confidence in his heart became stronger and stronger. With so many supporters, he would not worry at all that Li Ang would kill himself. If you do this, obviously, Li Ang can't escape from this place. In his opinion, the people behind him will definitely not kill him. Therefore, when he speaks, he is reckless. I don't know, but what I do know is that if you don't answer me, you're going to die. Li Ang said with a calm face and a faint smile. Do you really want to kill me? The impostor's expression changed slightly, and he said in a low voice. You can try, you try, I dare not kill you. Li Ang said, still smiling. You. Imposter took a deep breath, his face gradually returned to calm, and said coldly, I tell you, if you don't kill me today, then you are dead. I will never let you leave this island alive, you tell me clear. You really don't have a long memory. Li Ang shook his head, and with a smile, slowly moved the first-generation ghost. The first generation of ghosts cut through the skin of the fake, revealing a touch of bright red blood. Stop. Several strong men were shocked, and quickly roared loudly. You really dare. The imposter had a dry throat, felt blood flowing, his lips trembled, and his expression was full of horror. He still couldn't believe that this person really dared to do it. Could it be that the other party is really not afraid of the anger of the tens of thousands of people at the scene? The entire crowd also stopped. They looked at the bright red blood on the neck of the fake in front of them in horror, and their anger became even more obvious. However, none of them dared to act rashly, for fear that the counterfeit goods would be killed by Li Ang. This damn guy, he actually hurt Li Ang Lord. Today, the sky has entered the earth, and no one can save him anymore. Today, I must kill him here to quell the anger of Lord Li Ang. Yes, add me. Damn boy, I advise you to remove the knife from your hand immediately. Otherwise, we will attack you immediately. Quote. Chapter 577 The confidence of counterfeit goods. Quote. The crowd was surging and shouting loudly. But the fakes were held hostage by Li Ang, and they didn't dare to act rashly, so they could only keep shouting here. The whole place was enveloped by this loud voice. The whole venue was filled with this loud voice. There was a deep anger in his voice that could not be concealed. At this time, Li Ang held the first generation of Goosh, his face was calm, and he said again, then. Now can you tell me your true identity? Otherwise, in the next second, you will not be so lucky. You bloody bastard. The imposter's face showed thick anger and murderous intent, gritted his teeth, and his calm and confident mentality disappeared. When the blood rolled down his neck, he couldn't keep his calm mind any longer. Even he is afraid of death. It's just that at first he thought everything was under control, so he didn't show it. Now, Li Ang really dared to kill him, and all of his self-confidence suddenly collapsed. Tell me about your true identity and stop talking nonsense to me. Li Ang was expressionless and continued to ask. Okay, then I'll tell you. Imposter hesitated and said coldly, my name is Johnny, and I'm a businessman. Businessman? Is it as simple as that? I think it's not as simple as an ordinary businessman. Are you an arms dealer or a human dealer? The corners of Li Ang's mouth were slightly raised, and he said with a faint smile. The imposter who was spotted couldn't hold it any longer and said, both are slightly involved. Sure enough, I saw through it. Li Ang narrowed his eyes slightly, smiled, and said. Johnny. He had never heard of this name. In which sea area did the pirates rise? This point, he does not need to understand, and does not need to go to the bottom of it. Since you know 603, don't you want to let me go? The counterfeit, Johnny, looked cold, his eyes waved with murderous intent, and said in a low voice. At the same time, he had already made up his mind. As long as Li Ang lets him go, he must not let the other party leave here alive. Originally, the incident of kidnapping him had already made him very angry. Now, the other party actually forced him to reveal his true identity. This made him even more thinking that he had to kill Li Ang. Anyone who knows his true identity must never leave this island alive. Anyone will die. Johnny gritted his teeth, and he had cursed Li Ang thousands of times in his heart. He didn't even know why Li Ang wanted to do it. After all, what is the reason for the other party to kill you? This, from beginning to end, shrouded his mind as a puzzle that could not be explained. Let you go. Li Ang smiled lightly and said slowly, I didn't say that I wanted to let you go. Besides, I haven't finished asking my words yet. How can it be so simple? You. Johnny's eyes widened, his eyes were bloodshot, and his expression became more and more hideous. Unexpectedly, Li Ang actually played him. You're actually playing with me. Johnny was angry in his heart, his eyes became cold, his murderous intent fluctuated, and he roared. Chapter 578 _ The Clues of the Pirates. Correct a little. Li Ang waved his hand and said with a faint smile, I didn't play tricks on you, but everything is just your own fantasy. I never said, let you go. Do you think so? You. Johnny got more and more angry. In his eyes, there is nothing but the cold murderous intent. Johnny, right. Li Ang held the first generation of Gush and continued to ask, let me ask you again, why do you pretend to be Li Ang? Don't you know that you will lead to death by doing this? What's your business? Johnny took a deep breath and said coldly. What a disobedient boy. Li Ang smiled, holding the first generation ghost, sliding over Johnny's skin little by little. Blood flowed down the trail. Tick-tock. Blood splattered from Johnny's neck and rolled on his shirt. His eyes could not hide a bit of panic, and he hurriedly said, wait a minute. Now, can you speak? Li Ang narrowed his eyes slightly and said with a smile. Such a picture, flowing into the group of people, even aroused the anger in their hearts. Damn it, he actually hurt Lord Li Ang again and again. It's unforgivable. It's hateful, Lord Li Ang is in his hands, and we can't act rashly. But what are those guards doing? They were approached by Lord Li Ang. They're so useless, they're useless. Quote. The crowd was full of flowers, and they were all dissatisfied with the group of guards who protected Johnny. They are mortally ill and completely brainwashed. Now in their eyes, only Johnny's life safety is a problem. As for other things, they don't care too much anymore. Hidden in the crowd. There are also some people in the seats, looking at the dramatic picture in front of them, they can't help but laugh. These idiots don't even know that the person they scold is the real Li Ang. It's so funny, these guys really have the heads of the ministers. Now, when I look at it, why does this scene feel funny? Especially the so-called imposter, who still seems to be struggling. He doesn't know who is standing behind him. If he can see it, he won't be so calm. Quote. A group of pirates whispered and smiled. However, in order to avoid accidental injury, they subconsciously withdraw from the area in front. After all, the name of this monster, Li Ang, is not for nothing. Even the naval branch was destroyed in the sea in an instant. This entire venue, I'm afraid, is not enough for this monster's knife, right? Hurry back and don't get too close. Otherwise, our lives will not be guaranteed. The strength of this monster is far beyond our imagination. A pirate with a face full of fear, reminded in a low voice. Soon, a small number of their personnel kept withdrawing from their seats in the auditorium and walked further afield, for fear of being affected by the sudden outbreak of battle. If it's just a small battle, they naturally don't have to. But the problem is, during the battle, the monster Li Ang appeared, and the scale of the battle was unknown. Come on, don't delay. Chapter 578 _ The Clues of the Pirates. Come on, don't delay. Several pirates quickly evacuated the venue. Central location. Li Ang still placed the first generation ghost next to Johnny's neck, his face was calm and unmoved. Let go of Lord Li Ang. Around, a group of strong men shouted with murderous expressions on their faces. If you don't let go of Lord Li Ang, you will be buried here today. No one can save you, I warn you for the last time, and immediately release Lord Li Ang. They were full of anger, stared at Li Ang, and shouted. At this time, Li Ang's mouth moved slightly, and he smiled lightly. Your subordinates are still loyal. However, they are so reckless, but they will hurt you. If I accidentally shake my hands, you will die. What the hell do you want? Johnny gritted his teeth and said with an angry face. I said it, answer my question. Just answer the question truthfully. Li Ang's face was calm and continued. Pretending to be Li Ang. Of course, it's for his reputation. As for whether he will be worried about causing death, by then, I'll be gone, can he find me? Besides, I'm here to run a power. Soon, as long as the power is enough, I will remain anonymous. Who knows, I once pretended to be Li Ang. Besides, does Li Ang really care about a small character like me? Even if he does find out, so what? Could he kill me? Johnny, still stubborn, shouted. It turns out that you are not afraid of Li Ang's revenge at all, are you? Li Ang suddenly asked with a meaningful smile. Yes. Johnny laughed and said bluntly, Diaresis, what about Li Ang? He's just a person. When I manage enough power and recruit enough people, I will still be afraid of him. Do you want to replace Li Ang directly in the future? Li Ang narrowed his eyes slightly and asked with a smile. You really see it, I do have this idea. I want the whole world to know that I am the real Li Ang. Johnny said with an intriguing smile. Okay, one last question. Li Ang asked calmly. Recently, 3,000 children have disappeared. It is said that a pirate group kidnapped them. Since your influence here is so high, then you know about it. Did it happen? Hearing this, Johnny's expression changed slightly. I don't know what you're talking about. Johnny said with an expressionless face. Is it true that you don't know, or is it fake that you don't know? If you don't tell me, it's really hard for me not to kill you. Tell me now. Li Ang moved the first generation Goosh a little and said with a smile. Money, money. Suddenly, Johnny shivered all over, took a deep breath, and looked a little hesitant. But feeling the coldness from his neck made him make up his mind and said, I know them. Well, tell me, where are they? Where did they hide all 3,000 children? Li Ang's face changed and he asked easily. They're in a small village on the southeast side of the island. That's where they hide. They spread out to different places to hide from the public. In which, every other week, they would gather together in that small village to communicate some information with each other. Johnny exhaled heavily and said slowly. So understand. How do I know what you're saying is true or false? Li Ang asked again with a hint of surprise. Because, those 3,000 children, I provided them. Johnny's expression did not change. He closed his eyes slightly, and said solemnly. Chapter 579 _ Look Who I Am. So it is. Li Ang suddenly realized, with a smile, and said, that makes sense, why you know them so well. It turns out that the two sides still have cooperation. Now, can you let me go? Johnny forcibly suppressed the anger in his heart and said in a low voice. You can catch 3,000 children. Your ability is not small. However, with your current influence, it seems to be an easy thing to catch 3,000 children on this island. And, most importantly, you can capture 3,000 children and send them to pirates without anyone noticing. Li Ang's eyes flickered, and he said while thinking. Yes, you are right. Johnny couldn't take it anymore and admitted it directly. Surrounding. Several strong men looked bad, and their eyes gradually became cold, staring at Li Ang. In their opinion, Li Ang is already a dead person. After getting so much news from them, this person must not survive in this world, otherwise, for them, it is a potential threat. Only after killing this kind of person will they feel relieved. There were also bursts of angry 23 voices from the audience. Let go of Lord Li Ang. Let go of Lord Li Ang. They were full of anger, stared at Li Ang who was holding Johnny in front of them, and shouted loudly. The voice was loud, resounding through the sky. Not far away. Hancock, Robin, Tautu, and Tina were standing in an inconspicuous corner, watching this dramatic scene happen. Their delicate faces also flashed some meaningful expression fluctuations. This guy is useless. Hancock's beautiful eyes flashed and he said slowly. Now that all the useful news has been headed out. Then this fake is also the result of a thorough announcement that he is going to die here. As for that angry crowd, Just ordinary people. Even if there are more, they are just a group of ants, and they do not have the ability and strength to threaten them at all. Just a tyrannical arrogance can knock out all the ordinary people present. As for what will happen to them after waking up, that's none of Li Yang's business. All in all, this fake is absolutely not allowed to stay. Hopefully, these idiots won't be too aggressive. Robin Maimu fell into thought and whispered. If these stupid situations are too exciting, Li Yang can only use the domineering arrogance. Li Yang's domineering look is no joke. It is not impossible for a weak person to be shaken into a fool all of a sudden. At the same time, a group of pirates also looked at the picture of Li Yang holding Johnny in front of him. They had already hid in a farther position, looking at Li Yang in front of them with inexplicable expressions and a strong sense of anticipation. In order to prevent Li Yang's terrifying power, they had to hide in farther corners. It's still a matter of life, which makes them even more concerned. This imposter, who doesn't know it yet, is dying. A pirate laughed coldly and said. The real monster, standing behind him, is he still so confident? He still thinks this group of stupid ordinary people can save himself. This is a joke. Isn't it? It's ridiculous, he still tried to let ordinary people save him. This is really too cowardly. Just like that, how dare you pretend to be a monster like Li Yang? Quote. A group of pirates all sneered and shook their heads. Chapter 579 _ Look Who I Am. And GT, page 1/2. Please click the next page to continue reading. A group of pirates all sneered and shook their heads. In their sight. Position in front. Li Yang still put the first-generation ghost in his hand on Johnny's neck. His face was calm, even with a smile, as if he did not feel the shouts of the crowd at all. Now, can you let me go? Johnny gritted his teeth, felt the coldness in his neck, and said in a low voice. You are the head of the forces, so I expected it. But I didn't expect you to rise up because of selling arms and people. This means that you have a strong network of relationships. If you die, those relationships will collapse in an instant. I said, right. Li Yang's face changed and he asked with a smile. What do you want to do? Johnny's pupils shrank, and he asked in a voiceless voice, what exactly do you want to do? I admit that I never provoke you. Why do you have to do something to me? It took him 5 years to build the network. If he dies, all his efforts will be in vain. It was a situation he absolutely could not bear. Therefore, he desperately wanted to know why the person behind him wanted to kill himself. All the people he claimed to have provoked were silenced. How could it be possible to leave the remaining personnel to take revenge on themselves? This is where he is puzzled. You think again, are you sure you didn't provoke me? Li Yang's face was calm, and he smiled lightly. Who are you? Johnny's face became very dignified and asked. Guess who I am. If you didn't provoke me, maybe you could push your power to the world stage. It's a pity. Li Yang shook his head and said with a little regret. Who the hell are you? Johnny couldn't take it anymore, his throat rolled and he said hoarsely. The blood slowly flowed down from his neck. But this is just a skin injury, and there will be no danger to his life. Therefore, he was not too worried about losing too much blood and died on the spot. For him now, the most important thing is to know, why did Li Yang deal with him? After thinking about it for so long, he still couldn't think of a 420 reason. All the enemies were silenced. There will never be any living mouth left. This point, he can be absolutely certain in his heart. Then I need to let you memorize it for a while. Li Yang said slowly with his smile unabated. Johnny didn't speak, and was very vigilant in his heart. The guy behind him made him completely unpredictable. The other party is not afraid of being surrounded by tens of thousands of people. This kind of courage is definitely not an ordinary person. However, he still couldn't remember, where did he ever provoke such an enemy? Even if the enemy who has the ability to do this will all die in front of him, there will be no exceptions. He is very careful in his work, but he will stand by his enemies, and he will retreat only after confirming the death of the other party. It is precisely because he is so cautious that he can't remember at all, when exactly did the living hole appear. You pretended to be my name, have you forgotten about this so soon? Li Eng's voice was strange, his tone was inexplicable, and with a strange smile, he said, then look back and see who I am. Huh. Johnny's pupils shrank, his eyes dilated infinitely, his lips trembled and his throat was dry. For a moment, he thought of a character. And this character brought him an unparalleled sense of fear. There is no way to hide it, it is directly revealed in a pair of eyes. Chapter 580-Fearful Imposters Customize. Johnny never expected that here, he actually met this terrifying big man. He Nang, a small person in him, actually caught the attention of this monster. You. Johnny's lips trembled, his expression full of fear, unable to speak. So, now you understand why I'm dealing with you. Li Eng narrowed his eyes slightly, and said with a faint smile. No, it's impossible. Johnny kept shaking his head, his expression full of disbelief. He felt the coldness coming from his neck, causing his whole heart to fall directly to the bottom, and the expression of fear could not be concealed on his face. As an imposter, he naturally knew Li Eng very well. It is precisely because he wants to pretend to be more similar, so he has done a lot of homework, just to know more about Li Eng. Therefore, he has always been no stranger to Li Eng's appearance. But how could he not believe that a person of Li Eng's level would come to him? This is absolutely impossible. Li Eng, a monster, is busy, how could he be dispatched for his small role? This was something he could never have imagined. Unexpectedly, the person who was provoked was not the enemy, but the real monster, the devil. This time, he was completely finished. His eyes, pupils dilated, were close to the brink of collapse. Pretending to be my name, you're doing pretty cool. Seeing so many people adore you, do you feel a sense of accomplishment? Li Eng said with a smile in his hand, holding the first generation of ghosts. No. Johnny was terrified, shook his head quickly, looked at Li Eng with hope, and said pitifully, I didn't mean it, no, I just wanted to borrow it, I didn't really want to impersonate you. Do you want to explain now? It's too late, you told me so much just now. Do you want to say all these things, but you deal with my lies, not the truth? Li Eng smiled lightly and said. Yes, my words are all made up, you can't believe it. Johnny's desire to survive was very strong, and he hurriedly said. How dare you deceive me? The courage is very good, and it is very commendable. Li Eng's eyes flickered and he said with a smile. No, it's not. Johnny's legs were weak and his lips were trembling, and he explained, I just said that nonsense when I didn't know it was you, my lord. I didn't mean it, my lord. 100,000 people worship you. Li Eng looked around, and there were still a group of residents in front of them, eyeing tigers with anger on their faces. It made him intrigued and a little amused. These stupid people, so admiring a fake. So, I don't know how wonderful the picture will be when the counterfeit person dies in front of them. Thinking of this, Li Eng's mood became more and more frantic and exciting. Not sure, you can really try it. Let these tens of thousands of people have the expressions of grief and anger, and then, what will these people do? You said, if I killed you, will they avenge you? The corners of Li Eng's mouth moved slightly, his voice was flat, and he said in a low voice. This. Johnny was unable to speak, his throat was dry, and he looked ahead with a terrified expression on his face. These tens of thousands, as his supporters. However, when the enemy is Li Eng, does it really work? The answer is self-evident. Chapter 580-Fear of Fake Goods. The answer is self-evident. Even the naval branch was completely destroyed by Li Eng. These tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands, would never be Li Eng's opponents. This was a certain fact. After feeling his situation, Johnny's fear was also infinitely magnified. I didn't expect to attract the real Liang. How could this monster appear here? His mood was very manic, and there was no other expression on his face except for fear. Originally, I managed my own power well, but why did I provoke the deity to come here? If he had known earlier, he should not have used Liang's name by chance. Now, it's too late to say anything. He also expects these tens of thousands of people to bring some pressure to Liang. This idea, before it appeared, was removed by him. Tens of thousands of people, in front of a monster like Liang, are not enough to jam their teeth. Let me go, please, let me go. Johnny looked at Liang, crying and begging. Aside. Several strong men looked at Liang and Johnny with suspicion. Seeing that Johnny was still threatened, they spoke again, warning Liang with those threatening words. Kid, stop, do you know who you are provoking? If you don't fight, you will definitely die here. If you don't want to die, hurry up and put away your knife, don't let us do it. If we do it, then whether you can survive or not is a question. Diaresis. Several strong men were still fearless and shouted loudly. They're too noisy. Liang narrowed his eyes slightly and smiled lightly. My lord, I will silence them. Johnny took a deep breath, calmed the fear in his heart, glared at the strong men in front of him, and roared, you shut up. Lord Liang. Several strong men looked puzzled, looked at Johnny, and whispered to themselves. They can only think that Johnny was threatened by Liang to show such an attitude. Immediately, their expressions became even more angry. However, in order to ensure that Johnny was not killed, they did not dare to say a word, still maintaining a vigilant mood, staring at Liang in front of him. Sir, are you still satisfied? Johnny smiled and whispered. You are quite talented, but unfortunately, you have to take the initiative to provoke me. This is the first time I have met someone who took the initiative to provoke me. So, you are really, courageous. Liang patted Johnny with the first-generation ghost, and immediately scared the other party into a cold sweat. The sharp blade slid on Johnny's neck. Johnny felt the coldness on his neck, his whole body became stiff, he couldn't move, his lips trembled, and the fear in his heart was infinitely magnified. The breath of death, he felt more and more clearly. No, don't kill me, don't kill me. Plop, Johnny knelt down, looked up at Liang, and begged. Tears flowed down his face, and a look of fear appeared all over his face. No matter how sophisticated he is still afraid when faced with death. In particular, he has no confidence that Liang will not kill him. The only activation left for him to survive is to pretend to be pitiful and pray for Liang to spare his life. Otherwise, if Liang will let him die, no one at the scene could stop him.